All right, it says we're live. I actually have upgraded my setup here, you guys. I have my own screen so I can actually kind of see your comments. Somebody just said buy dog coin. I guess that's an alternative to... I know what it is. I'm joking. Anyway, hey, it's me, David Wilcock. Thanks for coming. And it's been a while, huh? I've been very busy with a lot of mission-critical objectives that really only matter for the world that we're going to have after these changes that are anticipated. The reason I am giving you this today is that I do consider this to be an urgent period of time. I have had a variety of briefings that have come in, and I've also had dreams coming in. In addition to that, I'm looking at a lot of conventionally available data in the public sector regarding pyramid-shaped UFOs. If you haven't seen this, then prepare to be absolutely blown away, because whether you're paying attention or not, the government, if you want to call it that, is preparing to drop a big D, the big D, disclosure, on us apparently in June. Senator Marco Rubio, who I very much support, has said that it might be delayed a little bit, so don't expect it to be right on June 1st. But Rubio and others are saying that this is going to be pretty freaking incredible. We also heard from the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe. So what we're expecting again, in case you didn't quite catch the very beginning, is there is a formal acknowledgement, and I have almost 400 slides in this show. I'm going to try to keep it under 2 hours. And a formal acknowledgement that sometime in June, that apparently it's going to include the idea that UFOs do exist, that they have crashed here, that they did retrieve wreckage. They've actually talked about a memory metal that they even gave the name nitinol to, saying that you can crumple it up and it can unfold. This has already been disclosed. So when we look at what's already been disclosed, we have to consider that this is a very interesting situation, because you can just take the pieces, the components that are already present, and have a pretty good idea of where this might actually end up going. The reason I'm so excited about this, going to the slide for a moment here, is that I consider that we're still in the middle of this global, very acrimonious divorce. In fact, one of our very top insiders, who I've only been able to actually speak to for real, let's go back to the camera here, said that we're 7 moves away from checkmate, and both sides know it. Now, the next slide, I'm not going to actually read it to you. I just want you to read it and consider the possibility that a lot of people are saying that whether it's aliens from Mars, riots, earthquakes, kidnaps, shootings, or a flat tire, that there might actually only be one thing. So, well, if we have an echo, there's really not a whole lot I can do about it. Yeah. So I'm sorry about the echo, everybody, but, you know, whatever the heck it is going on, let me see if I can hear it. Audio test 1 2, test 1 2. Yeah, I don't even hear it. So let's just keep going. All right. So yeah, don't move anything. Let me do it for a second. Don't move the mouse, please, because I am blowing out the trim a little bit here. So you know, it's back to the slide. Back to the camera. Back to the camera. What we're really dealing with here is a situation that back to the slide, I'm putting in multiple research hours per day on all of the things going on. You know what's going on. I know what's going on. But I am not able to publicly comment about those things at this time whatsoever. The mood and the environment has become incredibly oppressive. And my feeling is that I needed to preserve this channel until we get through what I could call the end game, which is something that might be going on pretty soon. Now, what do I mean by end game? By end game, I mean that for a long time we have been anticipating that there will be some sort of very discontinuous political event in the world. And the nature of that event is yet to be determined, but it appears that it will involve some type of widespread acknowledgement of there being a great deal of insidious corruption and menace on the planet from the most elite levels. And this is something that I've been talking about for many years. It has now become nearly impossible to talk about, at least on this platform. But I still have the tool of live streaming. I want to be clear that the tool of live streaming is incredibly important because we have the knowledge of the meditation effect, where as little as 7,000 people get together and meditate on what's called pure consciousness, and they are able to reduce global acts of terrorism, war, crimes, fatalities, domestic violence by 72%, meaning that nearly 3 out of all 4 people who would have picked up a gun, who would have committed an act of violence, who would have participated in a riot, let's say, chose not to do so. How did a group of 7,000 people effectuate such a discontinuous change in a much larger subset of population? We've ruled out all of the variables of weekends, weather, holidays, anything that could be a conventional explanation for why this particular effect took place. And yet it does, and it's been documented 39 different times in scientific studies just from the Transcendental Meditation Group, which is the group that initially conducted these studies. It's also been replicated by colleagues of mine, including Art Bell, Greg Braden, and of course, the author of The Field, Lynn McTaggart. All of these folks and others have done intention experiments in which they have gotten measurable effects, not only just on the level of peace, but in fact the actual electromagnetic activity of our planet changes. So this is a very interesting and very far-reaching discussion in terms of why would prayer or meditation cause this type of an effect to occur? How could this even be happening? And the only feasible explanation that I think is suitable is the idea that we are all sharing a mind somehow. There's something in science called the multiples effect, in which you'll have several different people invent the same invention at the same time. There's over 100 examples of this documented, very bizarre stuff where multiple people, not just Fife Symington's the governor of Arizona. I'm getting my things crossed. There's another Symington who invented the typewriter. And he wasn't the only one. Several people invented the typewriter basically simultaneously. Same thing with the steamboat logarithms, the oxygen molecule, the benzene molecule. There's a variety of these examples where it just the telescope, it just kind of all happens at the same time. Different people doing it basically the same way, filing for patents, and then the question becomes, well, who actually got it? So I understand that it's not a conventional idea to think that your consciousness is shared, but it actually makes a lot of sense in terms of the scientific research that we now have, the data that we have been dealing with. My first book has over 1,000 academic references, it's source field investigations, and just to be clear, a PhD dissertation is typically between 120 to 150 references. So that would be like the equivalent of 6 or 7 PhDs just in that book alone if you measured it by the dissertation size. So people say, oh, David has no evidence, David has no evidence. That's a very easy thing to do if you don't actually peruse the evidence, if you don't actually look at the 4 published books we've done. The latest one is Awakening in the Dream. You've probably heard me talk about this before. And in this book, I'm really getting into the idea that there are benevolent extraterrestrials in the universe. Now, the benevolent extraterrestrials in the universe are not going to contact governments. That's not how they work. They're not interested in teaching us how to build ships. They're not interested in helping out people that might not have the best intentions. If you read the best literature, and I'm going all the way back now to things like Edgar Cayce, 40,000 psychic readings in which he could diagnose people's medical condition, knowing nothing about them except the name and address where they're going to be at the time of the session. Somehow telepathically, he was able to go to these people, diagnose their medical issues correctly, and prescribed treatments, and those treatments typically involved a holistic mind-body approach to medicine in which there are spiritual issues that then iterate into the body. So Edgar Cayce, of course, was essentially almost illiterate, a Kentucky farmer, never finished more than 8th grade, immediately went to work farming tobacco and becoming a photographer, and then this whole bizarre situation happened to him where he ultimately was under hypnosis and began speaking with incredible authority, and then they kept trying it, and it turns out that it kept working. So 40,000 documented readings with incredible, impeccable accuracy. There are not very many sources that are that good, but there's a couple others I like that much. One would be the Jane Roberts books, the Seth material. Another would be the Course in Miracles. And the one that I really focus on the most is called the Law of One. Now, why do I focus on the Law of One? This is a question and answer dialogue that actually happens between a PhD physics professor. Let's go back to a PhD physics professor and an alleged extraterrestrial intelligence that claimed that it was working with the Egyptians and that they were responsible for the design and construction of the Great Pyramid. So in one of my later shows coming up, I don't know, maybe in less than a week here, maybe next Sunday, I think it's going to be next Sunday, I'm actually going to go through the Great Pyramid, because now that disclosure is starting to happen, it's incredibly important that you understand how impossible it is that any conventional technology that we have today could have built the Great Pyramid. And what you really need to do is get into the dimensions of the Great Pyramid, the actual measurements of the Great Pyramid. And there are so many intriguing things about the way the Great Pyramid was designed that are absolutely and totally beyond the capabilities of what we have today. Just as one example, did you know that the Great Pyramid of Giza originally looked like a gleaming white marble polished sculpture with no blocks, no visible seams, just a gigantic frickin' white sculpted thing sitting there in what might not have been the desert back then. It might have been more, there might have been trees there. But this white polished, beautiful sculpture, it was only after some earthquakes in the 1300s that those casing stones fell off, and then they were actually used to build mosques in Cairo. Prior to that time, many people had documented these casing stones and how beautiful the pyramid looked, including the Greek historian Herodotus. So the casing stones, my friends, are less than 1/100th of an inch apart. And they have seams between the cracks of the blocks that are 1/100th of an inch apart, which is smaller than the width of a human hair, smaller than the width between the tiles on the space shuttle. And those cracks actually have a glue in them, if you want to call it that. They're bonded to each other, such that when you hit it with a sledgehammer, the casing stones break before the glue does. Now, believe it or not, even though the Arabs did take most of those stones away when there was a huge earthquake that shook the pyramid and caused a whole bunch of them to fall off. And then the Arabs essentially removed all the rest and used them to build these beautiful mosques. So that situation reveals to us that there was something very, very scarily extraterrestrial about the way the Great Pyramid looked when it was first built. And when you start to look at some very curious things about it, you'll realize it gets weirder than that. For example, if you take the English inch and you slightly alter it by making it 1.00016 English inches, is I believe the number, then at that point you have exactly 500,000 of those inches between the bottom of the pyramid and the top. Exactly 500,000 inches. And it turns out that this is a mirror of the width of the Earth from pole to pole. It is an exact harmonic multiple of the width of the Earth, the dimensions of the Earth. And it only works with this particular type of inch and the 500,000 inches. So, anyway, yes. Well, there is an open mic, but it's muted, so we don't have any There's no other way to make that echo stop. It's not going to work. There's nothing we can do about it. What monitor?
This one right here being close to you?
No, that wouldn't do anything. No, we have an echo, and let me listen to it and just see if it's bad. I'm sorry, everybody, but you can't hear it. Okay, well then we're not going to do anything. If we can't hear it, then there's nothing wrong. There's nothing we can do if we can't hear it. It's impossible. Okay, so this is live. There's a lot of stuff going on. I got 400 slides. I've barely even started. Let's get you back on that rig. Anyway, the Great Pyramid thing. Oh, I don't know about the width of the Earth at the pole. Well, there's a lot more than that. I mean, this is going to go into a very intense and wonderful discussion. But once we get the acknowledgement from mainstream official sources that we are not alone in the universe, that UFOs are real, that they do exist, okay, if all of that ends up being true, well, we don't want to run another iteration of the video because we're going to hamper our bandwidth. So let's not have anybody else watch the video on our internet right now. Yeah, so we're not, if some people say it's fine, then we're not going to have a problem. All right, no material. Everybody says it sounds good. Some people say echo. Some people say no echo. But I don't know, guys. We're getting effed with so badly by the DS. I'm amazed that it's even working at all. So I'm sorry if you have an echo. We don't have it here, so we're going to keep moving. Thank you. Anyway, getting back to this pyramid discussion. What is so bizarre is that the Great Pyramid is normally seen of as some kind of cabal symbol, some kind of dark thing, even to the point where people would say, well, if the beings that built the pyramid came back and are talking now, they must be really evil. Oh. Actually, what I finally have painstakingly done in this book is I've gone through and I have shown that the Great Pyramid of Giza unequivocally is a monument to the coming Christ. It is a Jesus sculpture. It is meant to indicate that Jesus was coming, and then the fulfillment of that agenda, because all of these different esoteric works suggest that what happened to Jesus is also going to be happening to the rest of us. And believe it or not, in John 14:12, Jesus says, "As I do these things, so shall ye do them, and greater things, for I go unto my Father." So Jesus himself in the book of John says, you're going to do these things too. Well, how do we get there? The Great Pyramid actually gives us clues, and it's a very interesting discussion that happens in my book where we analyze the Law of One. We analyze things that most people, even if they think they're really big Law of One scholars, they haven't seen this stuff. Because what we're seeing is that the Law of One has various strange encoded phrases in it, like the use of the term everlasting rock, or the use of the term logos, or the term harvest. Those are 3 examples off the top of my head that are prominently and repeatedly used in the Law of One that directly tie into the Bible. Plus the fact is the Law of One comes right out and says Jesus was the embodiment of the logos, which they define as the mind of our galaxy. So that's a really big deal. One of my original insiders, Dr. Pete Peterson, said that he apparently visited a base in Antarctica where there are extraterrestrials that are living and working there. And those extraterrestrials had told him that the reason they were here was that the mind of the galaxy had embodied in a human being, and they meant Jesus, and that this doesn't usually happen, and it's very exciting, and they wanted to stop by and see what was going on. So it's pretty cool when you look at this big disclosure stuff and the idea that Jesus is actually the galactic mind. If the Bible says the Logos made man in its own image, then that would imply the Logos being the galaxy, that the making humans in its image could actually mean that wherever you go in the galaxy, you find human beings on those planets, or human-like beings, hominid 5-star pattern beings. And basically every insider I've ever met has said that that's what's going on, that we are chock full of humans all over the place, and surprisingly, a lot of them look much more like us than we would expect. One of my insiders recently said we're actually kind of short people compared to everybody who's out there. A lot of the times when you meet these people, you're looking up at them, you're not looking down. But they're comfortable looking people. A lot of them don't look scary at all. And you would feel great if you were around them because they actually have a spiritual radiance. These people are more advanced than we are. They're more evolved than we are. And they have been carefully guiding our planet behind the scenes. So all of this could be happening completely apart from any awareness of the military-industrial complex. They appear to contact private individuals, and their goal is to contact those who have the most loving and service-oriented personalities and who can handle this type of thing, because you have to actually be able to receive this gift. And just cultivating your expectation so that you can allow yourself to receive something this wonderful is kind of important. So all of these different sources of esoteric material. Another interesting thing with the Law of One is how eerily it parallels the concept of the rapture in the Bible. The rapture is by far the most, let's go over here now. The rapture is by far the most contentious part of the Bible, and so a lot of people don't really want to go there, even though they're Christians. They say, yeah, I'm Christian, but I don't know about the rapture stuff. Well, okay. As I was just discussing with my wife Elizabeth the other night, who's happily helping us on the switcher there, you want to say hello to everybody?
I turned my volume off.
Well, you can unmute it if you want.
Well, let's see what it's like when we unmute it.
Well, you got to turn those up, yeah.
Yeah, we turned it off in order to fix the echo, so now it's on.
Well, we're not hearing anything from you.
Interesting.
Yeah, let me... Okay, well...
Anyway.
Yeah.
We try.
We try.
There we go.
Okay.
That's probably why, because I turned everything.
Yeah, the trim was way... Yeah, your trim is way down. That's what it is.
So we'll just see what it's like when there's two microphones on, if there's not too much reverb.
And I could actually even change your camera angle too. So both of us now actually have a pointer. So we can fight over where the mouse is going.
All right, back to you.
All right. Enough of gaping at my wife, you guys. Come on. Leave it alone, okay? Anyway, I do have a fancy-dancy little thing that's supposed to allow me to switch camera angles on my own, but it's not working right now for some reason. Anyway, I don't want to keep dragging this thing on. Let's go back to the slide then. The big thing is that the big one may be closer than we think. You got positive ETs, and they're focusing on ascension. Let's go back over here. You got positive ETs that are focused on getting us into the ascension, getting us into the next level of human evolution. And they say right there, what they're the most interested in is contacting people who have humility, people who are loving, people who aren't going to get all puffed up about it, and people who are then going to go out there and bravely do something with the knowledge and not just hide it. So we may not... The people who are running our secret space program and our various other things may not even really be aware of what is in the Law of One or where it says that it's going, but I can tell you that if you read Awakening the Dream, and one more shameless promotion here, I don't make anything from this, it's really true. I don't know what I get per book. It's like maybe $1, $4. I think if it's $4 hardcover and like $1 paperback, it's not very much, folks. So anyway, if we're looking at what the beings are telling us is true, then the Christian concept of the rapture actually does appear throughout 23 different ancient cultures. And that's one of the things I was telling my wife just the other day. She was asking me, well, how many people have had this prophecy of the solar flash / ascension? Well, all of them. All the ancient cultures do. It doesn't matter whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Celtic, Druidic, Native American. I mean, everybody. And I've gone through this extensively in some of my previous work. The only really logical explanation, even on behalf of scholars from Cambridge who have studied all this, is that there was some unified ancient source of this information that then distributed throughout the world in geographically isolated cultures. And then this even gets into very strange things like, why did the Germans pick the swastika? Well, it turns out that shows up all over the world from very long ago. The Hopi have it, the Tibetans have it, it's everywhere. So they just poached a symbol that actually meant something else. If we have been guided over by positive extraterrestrials for this long, they've told us in works like Edgar Cayce and the Law of One exactly how they work, and that is that they contact private individuals. This whole process that we're going through on Earth, according to the Law of One, is an illusion. It's not real in the normal sense. The physical reality is a hologram. And the only thing that really exists is consciousness. And then if you can grok that the only thing that really exists is consciousness, the next step is to say, and it's only got one identity. There's only one identity. And so that's your identity. As you're listening to me right now, you are participating in the original thought, as the law of one would say. But this is where it gets interesting, the clarification. There's distortions to the original thought. And so we cannot embody the full original thought in our human mind, or actually our bodies would disintegrate. So we only can take portions of the original thought, and we have what they call in the law of one a personality self, which is what we think would be our personality, our identity. But actually we are what they call a mind-body-spirit complex. We have actually 7 different bodies at each of these 7 densities they talk about. So the universe already happened. It already came and went because time doesn't exist. So all of our lives are simultaneous. And these higher beings that are talked about in my new book and in the Law of One and other sources, they only come in to try to squeeze down how much time it takes for you to go through the necessary things you need to learn. So if you look at it like an accordion, and there's folds on the accordion, if you push the accordion together, there could be less distance between each of these fins. So in that sense, you may actually reach full enlightenment millions and millions of years faster if your higher self can go backwards in time and give you the right things to squeeze the accordion down. That's going to be our new slogan, squeeze the accordion. Right? Welcome to Divine Cosmos, squeeze the accordion. Although it would probably be misinterpreted, and I think we'd get in a lot of trouble. Because they think I'm squeezing something else. You know, this is the kind of thing you can talk about with your wife. So she's like, let's not go there. I know. Come on, I got to have at least one inappropriate David joke, or it's not really there. Okay, so the main way that these benevolent ETs are going to talk is not to the government, it's not to the military, it's through your dreams. And the book that I just wrote really documents that we all have these guardian angels. They are working for everyone, and if you would like to think of it this way, it totally fits right down into the Christian groove. Okay, guardian angels, archangels, seraphim, cherubim, all those actually turn out to be real. And what I find incredibly invigorating is the fact that you can change your life. I grew up in a family where if my mother had made $800 less when I graduated from high school, if she'd made $16,000 instead of $16,800 that year in 1991, I would have qualified for the ghetto scholarship program called EOP, or Equal Opportunity Program, where they would have paid me to go to college. So I did not have abundance in the normal sense. And I was raised in a family where our perspective was, if you can do what you love and survive, that's much better than getting a regular job and what we would now say joining the matrix, right? So I was taught, like, it doesn't really matter if you have a great house, or it doesn't really matter even if you live in one room. I mean, in college, I lived in the dorms for 4 years. I was totally happy because I was a scholar. Scholarship gives you that opportunity to just sit down and really dig into something and develop your inner identity. And that's one of the things that has really been delivered to all of us over the last year, the forced seclusion. And that seclusion can create a state that the mystery schools called melancholia, which is the first of 3 stages of enlightenment. You have to become horribly depressed, miserable, and sad before you then take the tools you've acquired and you start using them to go on this quest for great enlightenment. So, I don't think that anybody really knows where this is going or what's going to be happening, because there's the X factor of benevolent ETs, and they have been showing up, and I've documented this with the original Project Camelot witness back in 2007, Mr. X, as he was called. His whole perspective was that he had seen these documents, and the documents were from military defense contractors, and those documents indicated that there was a meeting with benevolent ETs that are called the Blues with Eisenhower, And unfortunately, Eisenhower rejected their offer. But the offer was, if we denuclearize and we get rid of all our nuclear weapons, they'll give us all this wonderful technology, free energy, anti-gravity, medical technology, all this kind of great stuff. But the only other thing they wanted besides denuclearization was they wanted to inform people that there's kind of like a unified perspective to all spirituality, that there's an underlying role. Now, Christians don't lose in that process. Christians win in that process, because if you read the Law of One, it actually turns out that it's a Christian work. The woman who was doing it, Carla Ruckert, had the Bible open up above her head to a particular passage that she really loved when she would sing it in choir. She had a incense stick burning, and they also had to always do these positive prayers for protection at the beginning of every session. In addition to that, the Law of One, as I've said before, described that Jesus was the mind of the galaxy. You can't get around that. It's not like there's another mind. And please, for God's sake, can we dispense with this ridiculous Gnostic concept that there is a demiurge that created the universe, and that therefore the whole universe is a fallen creation made by a fallen God, and that the real God is actually Lucifer behind the scenes. I do not believe that. The universe is intelligent. The universe is alive. It's not made by some frickin' half-god. It's real, and it's benevolent. And if these extraterrestrials acknowledge the divinity of Jesus, then in biblical terms, they're angels. Okay, so I think what we're actually going to find out is that extraterrestrial angels do exist, and that is a physical, tangible representation of what we saw in the Bible, and many other ancient works talk about these kinds of people. They might levitate, and then that gets described as wings, but it's really not wings, they're just levitating. And they have clearly supernatural abilities, including telepathy, telekinesis, all this kind of great stuff. So it's very, very fascinating when we start to consider that there is a way in which we could unify the UFO community in modern times with these reports of angelic beings in the Bible and other works. Now, of course, the official disclosure that apparently we're going to be getting in June is never going to go there. But what I'm telling you is, don't wait for the government to tell you what you need to know, because you're going to be the last one to know anything. And you're going to pay like $5,000 for something that costs $5. We're not going to say what those things are, but, you know. So the point is, instead of getting overcharged for false information, you can learn this yourself. You don't need to wait for a disclosure. You can connect with these benevolent, angelic, extraterrestrial beings, and yes, I believe that there is disinformation campaigns involved in why many Christians emphatically believe that all extraterrestrials must be demonic, evil, horrific beings. Even though there's all kinds of references in the Bible to very obvious extraterrestrial human encounters and UFOs. I mean, it's unquestionable. And so, in fact, one of the websites I always love to cite at this point is BibleRealityCheck.com. And you can go there and read an enormous amount of scripture that actually, like in the book of Isaiah, it's all over the place, clearly showing that there's craft that these beings are using by the thousands as they appear. So, to me, there's no question whatsoever. It really shouldn't even be that hard to figure out. Why do we have to act like all of these things happened 2,000 plus years ago and that it all just stopped? That we acknowledge that there was some kind of really amazing stuff that formulated religions, whether we believe all of it or not. We acknowledge that the religions happened. We have to. What if those beings didn't leave? So when we get disclosure, you see, it is a spiritual Pandora's box for the bad guys. Because now we can go to a website like Bible Reality Check and say, okay, if the government is acknowledging that UFOs exist, acknowledging that they've crashed, acknowledging they've gotten technology out of it, then that means that we don't know when they started to get here, but if you look at ancient reports from Rome of flying shields in the air and all this kind of stuff, it sounds like they've been here the whole time. And then you start to say, well, they probably were the people that built the pyramids. Because somebody had to levitate gigantic blocks of stone, and if you can levitate a ship, then why couldn't you also levitate stone? You've solved anti-gravity, you know how to do it now. So the disclosure question is much bigger than we had anticipated, but even if we get to the point of acknowledging that benevolent human angelic extraterrestrials do exist and that these are the same beings in biblical times, then we also have to reconcile the fact of how much time do we have to learn all this? And the answer appears to be not much. We're in the middle of a very, very huge transitional period. Somebody said, LSD, DMT, and Aya are amazing. Okay, that's just the first random quote I read. Let's see, what are you guys saying here? Somebody are still saying echoing. Okay, anyway.
I'm going to shut down. There's 2 bars open on this monitor of your show. I'm going to shut them down.
Oh, definitely. And you got to mute all the speakers on the computer if they're not already done.
I did all of
Yeah,
that,
okay.
so maybe that will help.
All right, anyway, I don't want to drag through this part, but the spiritual part I didn't have slides for. It's very important that I get there. Is it really that hard to understand? But is it really that hard to understand that the beings from the religions are still around and they just actually are part of the UFO phenomenon? What's also interesting is that many insiders have reported that there are very, very evil extraterrestrials as well. If I try to unify all the different reports together, it seems very clear that these, at least some of the negative ones, are reptilian in nature. And it's about as evil as you could possibly imagine. It's so diabolical, it's so scary that, like, it almost requires that there's a positive force in the universe to counterbalance this, and there is. There are good ETs too. They might not be as forthcoming with the military as they are in works like the Law of One about exactly what they're doing here and what they're going to be doing here later. But if you go back to the Mr. X disclosure from Project Camelot back in 2007, apparently Eisenhower turned down this treaty, but they said, look, after the year 2012, whether you like it or not, we're going to show up in massive numbers and there's nothing you can do about it in the sky. So they did say that. If there were to be some sort of catastrophic event on Earth, it appears from all these different reports that these beings would act as some sort of Noah's Ark rescue team. But then the other interesting thing is that if you actually participate in this ascension process that these sources talk about, sources from ET sources that seem to be vetted, if you actually go through it, you can stay with the Earth, and the catastrophe apparently wouldn't affect you. And then you have these marvelous ascended abilities, and you essentially become like Jesus, as he said in John 14:12, as I do these things, so shall you do them, and greater things. So that's a very intense, positive future, and to me it also helps to explain why we're so obsessed with superhero films. Why are there so many movies of people doing these incredible, incredible feats? Maybe because we're sensing that this is our future. And so when we see that future, we love it. What did the being say is the most important thing about whether you're going to make this process or not? They said it has to do with basically only one thing, which is the difference between service to others behavior versus service to self behavior. Service to self is defined as the negative path in the Law of One, but it doesn't mean that you can't help yourself. Service to self is something you have to double click on and get the definition. And the definition is the manipulation and control of others for the benefit of the self. Whereas the service to others path is love, kindness, compassion, patience, forgiveness. So you can see that if these beings have an objective to teach us this, this is why all the religions kind of keep circling around to the same. I was going to say circling back, but that phrase is gone. I mean, you can't use it anymore. It's gone. I have to rewrite that. And I like to say, come on, man, too. But every time I do, I sound like our illustrious president-elect, or president-select. We don't really know what's going on there, but if you watch my previous videos, I think you get a pretty good idea. So anyway, the dreams are telling me that we're getting into the final ejection sequence for this. So if you read my book, the book was actually finished. The manuscript was finished in early January of 2020, before all the COVID stuff went down, before I had any idea that this was going on, but yet the whole book was written as if we were going through a very rough period. And it seems very prophetic in hindsight. I document these prophecies that I had through doing my own version of Edgar Cayce-style readings. You'll see in the book how I was telepathically contacted. You'll see how incredibly these beings were able to predict the future. I mean, honestly, the amount of future prophecies that I got, especially in the early years, was so mind-expanding and mind-blowing. It's very difficult to even imagine. There is no other explanation. Let's just put it that way. There is no prosaic explanation, skeptical explanation. The most logical explanation is some part of my consciousness, regardless of what you want to argue about where it is or what it is, some part of my consciousness was able to accurately see the future. And we know this can happen with the studies of remote viewing, so it shouldn't be too surprising that this is possible, that it's possible to have a telepathic communication with higher intelligence. That's how all these original spiritual teachings got started in the first place. Most of them began with the still small voice, with the thing that you hear when you wake up in the morning and you're going through your dreams. I don't know what you're doing. Okay. Now I get to see her screen, so when things start moving around, I get incredibly, incredibly nervous, but you were just cleaning it up. Thank you. So anyway, all the way back in 1996 through 1999, I was being told that there was going to be something like a coup over the military-industrial complex, that there would be incredible darkness exposed to the light, and that this would precede, meaning it would come before, some type of disclosure event where we would find out that UFOs are real. All of those things are kind of converging now. But I always saw that the disclosure event is some sort of quantum improvement in the overall human mind. So if you can grok that 7,000 people meditate and terrorism goes down by 72%, it suggests that we're sharing a mind. Well, it appears that the mind that we're sharing is upgrading, and that there's an energetic effect caused by where we are in the solar system. So this will be the first time that I'll be happily announcing that we are going to be doing Ascension Mystery School Part 3. And even if you've seen the first one and the second one, everything else that I've done, there's a series of really amazing new breakthroughs that are coming out on this. And if you've participated in any of my mystery schools before, or in my wife's latest class, we give you a $111 discount on the price, bringing it down to $222. And that's less money than it costs for most conferences that you would go to. So where I want you to go is ascensionmysteryschool.com. And we're not going to actually have the new information uploaded until about Wednesday. I spent months meditating and really coming in clearly on what do I need to offer you now that we're getting this close to it. And so if you study the reports of those who've done this before, you'll see that people are very, very happy. This is a class you can watch at home. I typically go on for 4 or 5 hours, 5 Sundays in a row, plus we have, I don't know, 2 bonus videos. We have a bonus MP3, and then Elizabeth's going to be doing 2 of her own classes. So it's going to be amazing. It's an incredible wealth of materials, 25, 30 hours of material. So also, these conferences provide us with critical support for a variety of initiatives that we've been working on, including an initiative that is really getting steam now, and we're going to be talking a lot more about later on, for certain technologies to get out into the open. And this would include garbage processing, hover cars, and clean energy that may not require any gas. So let's just say that if this all works out, you're going to be very, very, very impressed. And you won't feel bad about why I took 2 months off, because I have been working my tail off. I got a 3D printer. I'm 3D printing prototypes. I mean, this is real, folks. This is not a joke. But there's a lot that I can't say yet, okay? So we're going to get there, but we're not there yet. But I'm already working on what's going to happen after the big event, because I know the big event's coming. I'm already working on the next part. So the next part after the big event is that we find out that extraterrestrials exist, and we find out that they have given us this great technology, and then we get to start using it. And I want you to just think on sort of a grandiose level about what happens when, let's go over here, center cam, what happens when we find out that we can build anti-gravity. Well, it's how long is it going to take for us to go to these other planets? How long is it going to take for us to be able to go there in person and examine alleged architectural sites? And we know that there are architectural sites that look like pyramids on Mars. There are square craters on this little Eros asteroid that orbits Jupiter. They're square because there used to be rooms underneath that were square and the ceilings collapsed in. There's a lot of great stuff on the moon that you can see in NASA photographs. The engineer Ken Johnston sequestered an original set of photographs that didn't have everything scrubbed out, and you see some pretty amazing stuff in those photographs. We've done this in other videos. If you just go through my YouTube channel here, you can see that. Or if you read my third book, The Ascension Mysteries, yes, the first half is what it was like for me growing up as a kid and having all these psychic abilities. The second half of the book is total disclosure to the max, and it's a summary of what all of the top insiders have told me about UFOs. It's a much, much more interesting disclosure probably than the one we're going to get in June. So please don't get lost if you start reading the book and you don't want to hear about me. Just forget about me and start on the second part, part 2, right in the middle. If you just do that and you start to read what all these insiders have said over the years, it's going to blow your mind. So all along, these prophetic insights were suggesting to me that there was going to be some sort of very intense and very globally visible downfall of the negative elite, as the Law of One would call them. That appears to be entirely underway, and with a whole variety of dramatic plot twists and chords and strings that I can't even talk about now because of how weird it's gotten. But I don't, my expertise isn't needed in that area. Everybody's doing a great job. I am so impressed with all of your videos, with all of your articles. You are doing an amazing job. The public is awakening in mass numbers. There's so much more of this content going out there, and everybody's on the edge of their seat. It's amazing. There's a certain app you can use. It's sort of like the app that would send a telegraph, but it's not. It's the message that would be sent by that. I'm not even going to say it. You do need to get that, and you do need to be on there. And just start putting in some of the names that you might see here, and you'll be able to find everybody pretty fast. But that's now really become the hot spot for information exchange. And you have to have something like this, or else we're totally, it's all tyranny at that point. So anyway, where I can come in is to provide insights into things that I feel you need to know that could be really, really coming up fast and could cause us a lot of disruption. So with that in mind, back to the slide now. I've been having these dreams lately, very lately, urging me to prepare for significant disruption. So all the stuff that I've been telling you about 10 days and this kind of stuff and power outages and this kind of stuff, I would not be surprised if we're right around the corner from that happening. It could be in a week, it could be less, it could be more. We really don't know anything. And I love the adventure. I love not knowing. I believe that everything we're seeing now is exactly the way the plan was intended to happen. I don't think anything happened that was a mistake. And there's lots and lots of text support, let's say, that suggests that this was the plan all along. And you can go back and look at it. A lot of people are doing that. And again, I highly recommend the report that starts with an X by the guy named Dave. And after that, after the alphanumeric character, you have to put a 22. Okay, so we listen to that every night. And that's basically now like the main thing that I know I'm going to have to listen to, because he really is kind of catching everything that's coming through that app night after night, and he has a very positive outlook in my view. It's not positive for the people who are going to be on the receiving end of this, and they're doing everything they can to stop this, but it's positive for just about everybody else. And the whole thing has gotten so outrageous and so ridiculous and so crazy that you have to be an intellectual troglodyte not to see what's happening and not to see where this is going and not to get the obvious fact that, yeah, there's probably going to be some kind of recall. Okay? That's all I'm going to say on that. But what I'm concerned about is the danger factor when an adversary with this much global power is backed up against the corner. They're going to try anything they possibly can to try to throw off our positive hovercar future. They're going to try anything they possibly can. And we don't know to what extent of lethality that will involve. But it doesn't look good, folks. We are hearing that there are significant, massive events that are being thwarted left and right. But I'm particularly concerned about the fact that right now, back to the slide, the powers that were need a massive decoy. They need some kind of distraction because all the eyes are on them and all the eyes are on certain things that are happening this coming week and already started over the weekend. So let's go back now to Dr. Carol Rosin, who I met at the Disclosure Project. I was there in 2001 on May 6th. There was a closed executive summary briefing I attended, and I met her and all the other witnesses, almost all of them. Anyway, I got to talk to her personally about when she was a younger lady. As you see here, she worked with the founder of NASA, Dr. Werner Von Braun, who was a German scientist who came over here. And anyway, back to the camera. The whole point of what Dr. Carol Rosin is saying here is that Von Braun had access to classified intel that he wasn't sharing with the public. Of course, we know that's going to happen. But he said that there was an agenda for total global control. And that agenda was being brought into focus, this kind of New World Order concept, the unified world government thing, that world wars were going to be used, but he also said the final card that they will pull, the final part of the plan, is a faked mock alien invasion. And he didn't say this until he was on his deathbed, which I believe was in the 1980s. He finally confessed it to her. So from the beginning in 2001 with the Disclosure Project, we have always been on the alert for the extraterrestrial fake invasion. Dr. Stephen Greer's been talking about this for years and years and years. It doesn't even really matter if it's made by people on Earth or if it's extraterrestrials. The point is that if this type of violence starts to happen, it could be very destructive and very negative for people on Earth. However, the good guys also have their own technology, and from what we're hearing, if this type of a fake thing was tried, it wouldn't last very long, and it would be put down. So, however, we must not act like really big and crazy and horrific things could happen on Earth that we get lied to about after they happen and we're told it's something else. Because, of course, that's never happened before, right? We've never had some big, horrible, crazy thing happen that everybody gets lied to about, and it screws up life on Earth and it causes all kinds of disruption. Oh, yeah, that's never happened. Look, guys, I am scared, and I don't say this lightly. So please, back to the slide. I do expect that I'm going to lose everything. I'm kind of amazed that I still have a platform, but it's only because I haven't been using it. So please go to, even if you don't want to do the class, that's fine, but just please go to dwilcock.com and put in your email address for us, because that way we will let you know whatever platform I move to when they do that, which might be after this video and the things you're about to hear. This might be the very end, folks, so, go sign up, because I don't know. I mean, the way they're doing it now, they try to take your website down, they take all your social media down. I think the website's pretty solid, but we really don't know. But if we have your email address, that list belongs to us, and they can't censor that, and so we will always be able to get you email. Now, if you have certain types of email, you're probably going to have it automatically route into your trash. So when you start getting emails from us, when you get the test email, please go into your filters and make an exception that says never filter messages like these. Okay, so that you know it's going to always go to your inbox. Because these things my letters are not going to make it into your inbox for most of the people. So you have to actually set a permission that says that it will always go to the inbox. And there's filters you can use to do that. Anyway, now what I want to do is I want to study the disclosure timeline. So back to the slide of just the things that have been happening very recently. We're not even talking about anything that's that old at this point. This is new stuff. So September 20th of last year, 2019, or 2020, geez, yeah, I just kind of didn't write any articles. Go back to the camera. I kind of just ignored 2020. Like, can we just edit it out? And honestly, they're doing something called backtracing now. So if I write any article on my website, they're going to backtrace to all the stuff I wrote before about a certain letter of the alphabet, and I'm done. So I really can't do anything, okay? So the website right now is essentially an archive, but I want you to understand why. Anyway, September 20th, 2020. Something happened that definitely appears to have been an engineered event for deliberate provocation. Because over New Jersey, people had the sighting of the flying black triangle that's often called the TR3B. So now going back to the slide, and thousands of people apparently saw this. This, as you can see, is originally dated September 16th. Thousands of eyewitnesses see a craft similar to TR3B. This is actually a photograph from some of those witness reports that people were seeing. So clearly you're seeing this black triangle and what appears to be some sort of light discharge or corona discharge as it's flying overhead. Now notice this is not cloaked. It's a daylight sighting. And this is from the article. The UFO, which was about 30 meters across, hovering over various parts of the city. People were seen on freeways, pulling cars over to the side of the road to watch the UFO in the distance. The object has a glowing light for a center, similar to the military TR-3B, and strangely enough, it is not a disc, but a triangle. The fact that the event took place is obvious from all of the videos currently being uploaded as we speak. And because the UFO was not detained by the Air Force, Mr. Waring believes this demonstrates the superiority of alien technology. Well, it's not alien. Okay. He said, why are there no military jets intercepting this UFO? Well, it's because it may be an actual U.S. military TR-3B or one of its evolutions. There are 9 huge, by the way, they're huge, 9 huge U.S. military bases in New Jersey. And yes, some of them are out in the middle of no F-where, so if something took off, you'd never see it. There are 9 military bases in New Jersey, making it highly unlikely that a UFO wouldn't have been intercepted by jets within minutes, unless the military's radar couldn't pick it up. It's not primitive. If that's true, then it's just embarrassing for U.S. military intelligence. But a simpler explanation is, it's ours. Okay? So, you have military bases in New Jersey. You have no attempt to scramble fighter jets to go after this thing. And obviously they would, because people are seeing it, they're calling in. That suggests the military owns this thing. That suggests that it's not extraterrestrial, and there's a widespread amount of information out there suggesting the TR-3B is man-made. So then the question becomes, they don't have to do this. They don't have to decloak something like this and fly it over their bases in New Jersey. Why would they do it? Is it the weapon of mass distraction? Is it the decoy? Is it intended so that if they need... Because this is what we've been hearing, folks. If you've been watching my videos all these years, it's the Carol Rosin thing again. When they really need it, they're going to throw out the UFO invasion. Okay? When the deep state's really in trouble and they got everything, their backs up against the wall, now it's time to do that. So how do you... If you're just standing there in the middle of a dark room and you can't see anything and you don't hear anything, and all of a sudden a sword comes through your chest and you're dying. Are you scared before somebody stabs you through the heart? No, because you didn't freaking hear anything, you didn't see anything. But let's say that the lights are on. And then you hear a noise. What's that? And then the lights go down. And then you hear other noises. And the noises start getting closer. That's a dance. And if you're going to write a movie like a thriller or a horror movie, you got to build up that fearful moment when there's the boo, and then all of a sudden the viewer of the movie gets scared, right? It's all about the build-up. It's about planting things in the path that, first you hear that click, and what was that? And then you hear that bang, and then, oh my God, the lights went out, and oh my God, and now I'm hearing a sound, and I'm hearing breathing, and somebody's coming closer. That's when you start freaking out. If you look at the number of alien invasion movies from Hollywood, and now we know a lot about Hollywood, a lot more, and they've spent billions of dollars on alien invasion movies. Billions of dollars. Why would they invest so much money? Is Dr. Carol Rosin right? And if you wanted to get people afraid, well, you got to make them think it's real first, and you got to start hanging out little things to get people more and more afraid, right? And this already had begun before with the Tom DeLonge stuff, that they actually came out with this UFO footage. And I think the reaction was surprisingly muted. People didn't really care. Oh, yeah, we know UFOs are real. Whatever. I mean, nobody cares. And so now they got to up the ante. But another thing is, if you're going to start to create these distractions, the Carol Rosin approach and then all the other insiders, what we're expecting is that there's going to be a ramp up of this sort of extraterrestrial disinformation and extraterrestrial threat campaign as the negative elite are weakened and as they end up critically damaged and they need that final decoy. They need that Hail Mary pass. They're going to throw that ball all the way across the field and pray to God that there's somebody over there, or Lucifer, somebody over there is going to catch it for them, right? They don't pray to God, okay, just by the way. I see we have 17,000 live views. Thank you. That's totally amazing. Thank you, everybody. And so the benevolent ETs had this all nailed down, folks. They contacted people like me and others. We're writing books about this stuff, and that's not going to happen to the military. They might only see UFOs as a threat. They might not even understand what the benevolent beings are really doing, because some of these beings don't even want to talk to anybody from the government at all. It's like walking into, telepathically, it's like walking into a sewer. And the stench of people's thoughts. So that's why they like to work with children. Some of my insiders started out when they were children. So think about it this way. We're not alone. The government is telling you we're not alone. Why would they do that unless they have to? Unless they think they have to. Because they don't gain anything by suggesting that there's a higher authority out there than our own terrestrial governments. Why would the people want to give their fear to a negative ruling elite if there are benevolent beings out there that are Christ-like, that have the whole thing under control and want to talk to us and want to elevate our society to a higher level? If we're in that society with anti-gravity, with free energy, with medical technology, now we're traveling to other planets. Now everybody gets to live like a millionaire. Everybody gets to travel. Everybody gets to have fun. And there's so many ways in which society opens up and transforms. And I think eventually it's going to become like Star Trek, where, they don't have a money system. You just print what you want. You print the objects that you want, and you print the food that you need. And people work because they're inspired, not because they need money. Nobody needs money on the Starship Enterprise, right? You just go to 10 forward to have a drink, or you use a little materializer to have your meal in your room. So think about it. What really becomes the motivation for our society is exploration and discovery, not scarcity and survival. So if there's people who profit off of scarcity and survival, if there's people who enjoy keeping the planet down, they don't want disclosure. They don't want you to know about benevolent, angelic, Christ-like beings that are actually going to save our butt. They're going to want you to think it's all evil and negative and scary, and they might even try to actually make it appear that we're being invaded. So that's a very, very significant concern. And all of this stuff with September 20th, remember, back to the slide now, this all happened before the election. And the election, of course, is something that I can't even talk about because it was so contentious. But suffice it to say that, these things are being set up if they're needed. The next thing, and you've heard me say this before, back to the slide again, the head of the Israeli secret space program reveals that extraterrestrials are already here. This was on December 20th, 2020. And so I showed you this before, but it is very important in context, so I'm reviewing it again. They have a galactic federation, and it's real, but they're hiding until we're ready. Even TMZ had this to say. And then this article we're going to read from Middle East Eye, aliens exist and Trump knows it, says the former head of Israeli space program. And then here's another thing where the former president, or current president, depending on how you're looking at it, was on the verge of confirming. We won't go any further on that line of inquiry. Anyway, so Middle East Eye, here we go. That's the article I just showed you. The former head of Israel's space program has claimed that the U.S. and Israeli governments are in touch with extraterrestrials. They don't like the term aliens because they're human. They're not aliens. So that's kind of like racism, folks. And we're already hearing a lot about racism, so let's please stop using that word and just call them extraterrestrials. And that a galactic federation is already in existence. Haim Eshed, who ran the Israeli space program for nearly 30 years, just stop and grok that for a second. Don't let that one go by. 30 years he ran their space program. Do you think he knows what he's doing? You think he knows what he's talking about? Yeah. He said humanity isn't ready to make contact with this extraterrestrial civilization. And he claims that these ETs actually had to intervene to prevent U.S. President DT from blurting out their secrets. The 87-year-old made the comments to the Israeli paper Yediot Aharonot ahead of the publication of a new book entitled The Universe Beyond the Horizon, which deals with his claims about the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. I've got to get that book. I haven't gotten it yet. The ETs have asked not to announce that they are here because we are not ready yet, he told the publication. They have been waiting for humanity to evolve and reach a stage where we will generally understand what space and spaceships are. That's the one thing, going back to the camera now, the one thing that really bothers me about this particular quote, because it's so much more than just space and spaceships. But please understand, I do not disrespect Haim Eshed in the least. I think he was probably misquoted. And if you hear other parts of the interview, he's going to say there's a lot more to it than just whether we understand what spaceships are. Everybody understands what spaceships are. So the real characteristic about whether they're going to appear or not from all the esoteric materials that appear to be telepathically derived from them, where they predict the future, they're diagnosing people's medical ailments, all this kind of stuff, provable benchmarks that this is an authentic contact in place. Those contacts clearly say that we're not going to be contacted until we have spiritually matured, where we're not going to play my race is better than your race, my God is better than your God, my gender is better than your gender, my age is better than your age, my government is better than your government. And what's happening on Earth now is really just exposing the silliness of all this and the fact that it has a central architecture. That it is the principle of divide and conquer. It is the principle of get people fighting with each other so that they don't look at the real problem. All that is something that we're growing up through right now. This whole experience for us is a global karmic alleviation. And so in the new Ascension Mystery School, the 3.0 that's going to be coming out, you're going to be able to read about it on ascensionmysteryschool.com. As of Wednesday, hopefully Wednesday night or earlier, we'll have it up there. Don't expect it earlier than Wednesday, though, but it's going to look beautiful. I really feel that I'm able to now drop some very high-octane stuff on you in this class, and there's no way I'm going to say it publicly. There's a lot of stuff here that needs to have the initiation of being part of something that you had to pay for, because if I do it publicly, it's just not possible. And also, I get to say whatever I want on this thing. So I want you to keep that very much in mind, and I want you to think about all the things that might be in the class that I'm never going to put in the write-up, because then we wouldn't be able to do ads. But that's besides the point. That's my platform at that point. Nobody can control it. We have a private way of doing it that's not beholden to any platform, so I'll be able to say whatever the heck I want. Anyway, so we'll forgive the mistranslation. Back to the slide. There is an agreement between the U.S. government and the extraterrestrials. They signed a contract with us to do experiments here. Well, that isn't in the least bit disturbing at all. Experiments? They signed a contract? Oh, but we're not ready to know that we're being experimented on yet. We're not ready? Okay, so this is part of the confusion. There are at least two major types of ETs. There's bad guys and good guys. The bad guys are experimenting on us. The good guys want to make sure that we ascend and that we learn to be more loving. And they've been teaching us the same thing in religions, and we're really stupid and we never understand it. Okay, so they keep repeating that message, and they're doing it in modern times. And now we don't create religions; it just turns into some book that's on the internet. Okay, but they're still doing this, and there's still definite examples of this. So let's go on with the slide now. He explained that these extraterrestrials actually have at least one base on Mars, and remember, 30 years is the head of Israeli's space program, and here he's telling you they have a base on Mars. He said that T was on the verge of revealing the extraterrestrials' existence. Why do they say this word alien, alien, alien? But that's because they want you to be afraid of them, right? And they say they're experimenting on us. Well, that's not true. Not the good guys. T was on the verge of revealing the ET's existence, but the ETs and the Galactic Federation are saying, wait and let the people calm down first. So, when you sign up for Ascension Mystery School, if you take this class with me, if you've done any others, you can get it, as I said, 222, a lot less than almost any other UFO conference in existence, half as much as most of them, honestly. And we're doing that to keep it cost effective. We could ask for any amount we want. We keep it as cheap as we can. So anyway, I'm going to go through those 1950s ET channelings, and I'm really going to dive into what they say about this solar flash and the change in the solar system, and that's going to blow your frickin' mind. And there's a section in there from a speech from Wilbert Smith in the 1950s where he's talking about his contact with these extraterrestrials and the other people that had contacted them and the interviews that he conducted with those people. And he said back then that the ETs told them in the 1950s that they could not interfere with our civilization until certain cycles played out on the world stage that were absolutely critical for human evolution. And I believe those cycles began last year, and we're seeing them right now. This is the Great Awakening. It is a massive, massive change in how everybody sees their own lives and life on Earth. And if we get disclosure, it's going to get a lot bigger, a lot faster. So, the next step, going back to the slide of our disclosure timeline, is February 15th, 2021. So this is just a couple months ago. And this one kind of slipped by, but it did happen. The Pentagon admitted testing the crash debris from UFOs. So here it is. I think this is an NBC type of site, News 18. Pentagon just admitted to testing UFO wreckage. But what did they discover? And as it says at the bottom, Pentagon, the USA Defense Department's headquarters, has admitted to testing wreckage they gathered from UFO crashers. Researcher and author Anthony Bragalia has said Bragalia had written to the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, as part of a Freedom of Information Act request over 3 years ago. Here's another link to an article calling it a stunning admission. Pentagon admitted to holding and testing wreckage from UFO crashes. And here's another one. And this is actually the one we're going to read from. By the way, Anthony Bragalia's website is called UFOexplorations.com. It's awesome. Thank you, Anthony. You're doing a wonderful job. You do have to go into Article Archive to read everything. The front page of the website only has one article, so don't get confused. Click on Article Archive, and all the other stuff is in there. So this is really, really amazing because it includes the declassification it includes the declassification of a 154-page new document that we haven't gotten to see before. And I've already been pouring through it, and it has all this kind of advanced physics that, guess what, I'm already going to be talking about in the next class. So part of this Pentagon disclosed document is going to make it into Ascension Mystery School 3. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, getting back to this article once again, I want to read this to you because it's so significant. This is February 15th, and in other articles that I didn't have time to relocate, the people that were involved in this have said that there's multiple UFO crashes that they have with wreckage. Not just one. It's not just Roswell. Okay? So check this out. This is from the article, Mainstream Media. The Pentagon has finally admitted to testing wreckage of UFO crashes, according to author Anthony Bragalia, who wrote to the U.S. DIA. The DIA reportedly released a 154-page test result of a mysterious memory metal called nitinol, which remembers its original shape when folded, according to Bragalia. Quote, a stunning admission by the U.S. government that it possesses UFO debris was recently made in response to a Freedom of Information Act request over 3 years ago. In a reply letter, the U.S. DIA has ended decades of speculation and verified that UFO material has indeed been recovered. Now officially referred to as UAP rather than UFOs, some of this material was placed with a defense contractor, and that's Bigelow Aerospace, for analysis and storage in specialized facilities. So he's admitting that Bigelow Aerospace actually got this wreckage material and studied it. Okay? Incredibly, part of the information released discusses material with shape recovery properties much like the memory metal debris found at Roswell, he revealed. Based on the documentation received, it appears the retrieved debris exhibits other extraordinary capabilities. Check this out, folks. In addition to remembering their original form if they are bent or crushed, which is really good for a little crash, right? Ship fixes itself, saves you a lot of money on the garage. Some of these futuristic materials have the potential to make things invisible, to compress electromagnetic energy, and even slow down the speed of light. Well, another one that he didn't add in here, but that we hear from a lot of other reports like this, is that it also includes anti-gravity. Certain materials, like certain bismuth alloys, when you run electrical current through them, they will levitate. And gravity is not something that our physicists really understand. There's all kinds of gravitational anomalies and really weird stuff that you cannot explain in the conventional view of gravitation at all. And in fact, if you think about how light and intangible air is, and yet a massive airplane can use air as a medium, an airliner is flying across air, why couldn't you have what they call on the inside a flux liner, where it rides on the ambient electromagnetic flux in the atmosphere? If air can lift a frickin' plane, why couldn't electromagnetic flux? It works, folks. What we're going to learn when we get disclosure is that the Biefeld-Brown effect is true, electrostatic gravitics works. You're going to learn that the Victor Schauberger turbine really works. That's the one the Germans got. It's based on the fact that trout can swim upstream and they literally levitate up through a waterfall to go upstream to their spawning grounds. He studied the vortex that was formed in the water before because there's a vortex actually that's at the base of a waterfall, and it naturally causes levitation. So the fish don't have to do anything except swim into the right location, and then they just levitate on their own. So that's a natural effect. It's a natural vortex that helps these fish survive. It also actually helps sap rise through tree stalks. There's another guy by the name of Oliver Wagner, I believe, I'm not sure if I got the last name right, but he actually studied tree anti-gravity and found out that if you put a gravitational sensor inside a tree trunk and you cut out a hole in there, that it actually detects gravitational reversals in that little area. So trees are creating anti-gravity by some kind of vortex that's created by their simple shape. And that researcher also made a very curious realization that all of the branch angles, the angles of the branches on a tree are always in 5-degree increments. And there's a whole huge amount of stuff that he's done on that. So maybe I'll throw some of that in the mystery school for you as well. I certainly have the ability to do that. The fact is, anti-gravity occurs in nature, and anti-gravity may actually be responsible for why you get streams of water at the top of a mountain. How does the river start at the top of the mountain and then go down, right? Where's it coming from? Oh, well, the glaciers. Well, there's no glaciers, right? So, yeah, well, it's water pressure. Okay, yeah, maybe it's water pressure, and that's all it is water pressure pushing it up the mountain, but it also could be an anti-gravity effect. We don't actually know. But apparently, in the case of Victor Schauberger, he discovered that water does tend to make these little eddy currents, and he was able to analyze it and then replicate it with a turbine, with a physical piece of metal that spins water or mercury around inside and generates the same lift that causes those trout to rise. So he actually named his discovery after the trout fish originally, and he also called it the repulsine. And then apparently, horribly, he was captured by the Germans, tortured, interrogated, gave them all the secrets, and it became a fact that the Germans were the first to actually have extraterrestrial type technology, which showed up as the Foo Fighters in World War II. So Bergalia is now saying that from the actual government disclosure that he received, and again, please everybody in the UFO community, if you want to call it that, please don't troll Anthony, and please don't compete with each other. This is not rap music. We're not fighting over who's the biggest, best rapper, okay? We're just all trying to get to the truth. So let's support this guy, okay? Instead of, oh, I'm jealous, you know? Well, each person gets their own pieces. Don't be jealous if somebody gets a good piece. Let's use those pieces and combine them and understand what's happening to us. So The DIA told Brigalia that it can make that these metals they found from extraterrestrial craft or whatever they are, UFOs, they can make things invisible. They can compress electromagnetic energy, which suggests the potential of much larger power sources in much smaller spaces, right? Because if you can compress it, that means you have more of it in less space. And that would be key to the laser gun and that kind of stuff, right? You got to have a battery that can hold on in that little barrel, and right? And even slow down the speed of light. Well, that's very strange. And anti-gravity, too. So this has been formally acknowledged. It's unbelievable. So going back to the slide now. According to Brigalia, the documents revealed that the tests were carried out by Bigelow Aerospace, a Las Vegas company performing private contracts for the DoD. Quote, although much of the report's details are redacted, what can be gleaned is that these technologies represent a literal quantum leap beyond the properties of what? What? Okay, good. Thank you. So apparently the dwilcock.com doesn't work, so only ascensionmysteryschool.com works, so please go there, and we will be able to get your email address from there as well. There's an email capture, as we call it. Everybody calls it that. It's not, we're not capturing you, okay? But you can put your email address in on ascensionmysteryschool.com. Thank you for letting me know. That's important. Okay. So he said these technologies are a quantum leap beyond the properties of all existing material that we know about. And that is very exciting because even if they don't want to, part of what we're thinking this partial disclosure is going to be is they're going to say, well, we don't know. We don't know if it's extraterrestrials. We don't know if it's the Russians. We don't know if it's the Chinese. We don't have any freaking idea who did this, right? Well, if it's a quantum leap beyond all materials known to us, and they're going to tell us that this exists, it makes sense, as what our briefings are saying, that they're going to actually declassify some of this stuff. They're going to declassify these materials. They're going to declassify these patents. So even if they don't want to tell us that ETs are real, it's kind of like at that point, who cares? Because now we're getting the big payoff, which is all the forbidden technology. And realistically, it could take our civilization 2 to 4 years for this technology to go out on any kind of widespread level. And a lot of insider sources are saying that there's a big push now to get this technology out a lot faster than earlier versions of various plans had indicated. So I'm very, very excited about the future, and being with the fact that I'm actually working on it on the other side and lining this stuff up for you, let's just say that I'm very, very excited because I'm seeing it come true, okay? All right, so next slide. Throughout the received FOIA documents, mention is made of potential use of some of these materials for advanced aerospace platforms. Well, there you go. That means that they've already built things that use this technology. Reference is made to desired material characteristics such as being extremely lightweight and tough, like the characteristics of the debris found at the Roswell crash. And then it says, in December last year, former President DT signed the $2.3 trillion C relief bill, in which he also set into motion a 180-day countdown for the authorities to reveal all they know about UFOs. The DIA and the Secretary of Defense were given less than 6 months to provide information on unidentified aerial phenomena to the Congress and committees of armed services, according to former President T's move. Almost on cue, America's spy agency, blankety blank, 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 not going to say that, allowed all UFO information to be downloaded ahead of the deadline last month. Well, yeah, because they got nothing to hide, right? Because they want this. They're just going to give it to you because they already know what they're going to do next. That's what I think. That's my opinion, okay? I can't prove it yet, but that's my opinion. The blankety blank allowed documents to be accessed by download from the Black Vault website. That's Greenwald, John Greenwald. He's doing a great job. And we love him. So the data involved every instance of UAPs that have been mapped by the U.S. government. So again, if the blankety blank just blatantly hands you something, it's probably not going to be the most fun or the most enjoyable or the best idea based on everything else that's surrounding this. Now the tension is going to ratchet up even more, folks, because we're getting to the announcement of March 23rd or thereabouts from the Director of National Intelligence, Ratcliffe. So here's an article from the Amazon Post. Did I just say that out loud? Uh-oh. Thanks to Trump-era COVID relief bill, a UFO report may soon be public, and it'll be big, ex-official says. So that's pretty exciting. Former DNI John Ratcliffe says the government has proof of UFOs doing things that we don't have the technology for. There's another headline. And here's another headline. There were so many of them. Ex-intelligence director says the U.S. has classified evidence of supersonic UFOs. Now, as I said before, our insiders are saying this is going to be far less than a full disclosure. We can mainly expect that there's going to be more of the same type of Tom DeLonge footage. And in fact, we're already seeing some of it now. However, as we just saw from Anthony Bragalia and UFOexplorations.com, UFO crash technology has already been acknowledged by the DIA. It's already been official. And, you know, we're hearing from insiders that there are many compromises being made. In other words, let me go back here. Apparently, some of these insider agencies and groups and programs are being pushed very hard to release things that they don't want to release. And there is apparently an incredibly furious battle going on behind the scenes right now about how much is going to be released in this report and when. Senator Marco Rubio is a supporter of the work that we're doing, and he is involved in this. So we love Senator Rubio and we support him. So let's hope that we're going to get as much of the good stuff as possible, but there is a very ferocious and very, very nasty fight going on the inside right now about what exactly this is going to be. It is sort of like in the Bible when they wanted to take certain books out when they made the New Testament. Well, you know, will it be less obvious if we remove the book of Thomas and the book of Mary, you know, and then other Gnostic Gospels, right? So, those Gnostic Gospels actually have some interesting things in them, suggesting that God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit are actually realms of existence in which there are, in some cases, probably not God the Father, but multiplicities of beings. And so the whole Arian heresy that Constantine, the Emperor of Rome, when he put together the New Testament in 325 AD, there was a certain contingent led by a man named Arius and 4 of his supporters, where he had found scriptural proof that angels were actual beings, and he had all the evidence. And so, believe it or not, Constantine deleted all those things out of the Bible because he didn't want people to think that there was any actual beings that would come and help you. So you have to go back to the church for your support and strength, and give the church your tithe money. Yes, that's why we ended up having to have separation of church and state, right? Because the church was the government, and you had to pay the church. And they didn't want you thinking that there's other beings out there that might come to your rescue. So when Arius pointed it out, Constantine called it a heresy. He fired Arius and all of his supporters, and he erased all those passages out of the Bible. Okay, so there's some heavy stuff that's gone down in the past. Anyway, everybody is kind of saying, okay, back to the slide, advanced patents will likely be declassified. We can expect that we're going to have, you know, hover cars, well, not maybe right away, but at least the ability to do it, which is where we come in, but that comes later. This energy technology, and even some stuff that could knock out major diseases much, much faster, physical pain, all kinds of really cool stuff. I strongly suspect that we're going to get a lot of new attention on the weird patents of Salvatore Pais. And maybe it's Pais, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but Salvatore means savior and Pais means peace. So it's like the savior of our nation, or the salvation of peace, right? So this suggests that he might have been chosen by the military because of his name, and he might have been handed these patents. So the Salvatore Pais patents is the savior of our nation, right? Is what it actually translates as, the bringer of peace. They include this thing called the Hybrid Air Underwater Craft, or HAUC, in which it is a transmedium compatible craft. What does transmedium compatible mean? That's one of the things that you're hearing now in all these disclosure things. It means you can be flying through the air and you can fly down into the ocean. You don't crash. You don't leave anything behind. And then you can fly out into space. So you got all three. You got air, space, and water. That's transmedium compatible. So you already patented it. It's called a HAWC. HAUC, Hybrid Air Underwater Craft. And the patent, as we've shown in previous videos that I have on this channel, it's already been said that it works. Okay, so the Salvatore Pais patents, based on my own insiders in aerospace who've looked at this and who understand anti-gravitic propulsion,
it's going to work. These patents are workable designs. And so what is so incredibly exciting is we may be getting this technology a lot faster than we think, and it may start immediately after this announcement in June. So that is the beginning of an incredible thing that I have been working my entire life for, often 14 hours a day. I'm incredibly, incredibly excited. And back to the slide once more, a domino effect is expected to occur once this is done. I've heard several insiders say this. The public is not going to be satisfied with the drip, drip, drip disclosure. They're going to want something a lot more than that. So what we can expect is that they're going to tell us a certain amount of stuff, and people are going to demand that they see the wreckage. They're going to demand that they see the photographs of the original crash. They're going to demand that they see the videos. They're going to demand to know whether there's extraterrestrials in there. And then, oh, wait a minute, you guys are trying to say that this isn't real, and this isn't real, and this isn't real, but that this is real? How do you arbitrarily decide what's real and not real? And why do we believe that you guys are going to tell us the truth? You're not exactly highly trustworthy right now, you know? So a lot of people don't trust anything that they're hearing right now. There's widespread disillusion. So why would you think that if people are told UFOs exist and, oh, this is all the information we have? Yeah, for a week. So the whole thing's going to unravel, folks. And what it's going to probably lead to is bigger and bigger things, bigger and bigger acknowledgments. And again, if you go back to my third book, Ascension Mysteries, and you go to part 2, you get a really nice summary of what all the different insiders who I've personally spoken to have told me. Now, bear in mind that somebody like President T, I was told by Pete Peterson, he wasn't even going to get the minimum classification until 2.5 years into the term. And the cosmic clearance is 35 levels of need to know above the President of the United States. Now just try to wrap your head around that one. The basic entry-level cosmic clearance that you need to have to start learning the kind of stuff that's in part 2 of Ascension Mysteries requires you to have 35 levels of rank above the President of the United States. Whoa. So how in the world can we regulate these programs if they're under no civilian oversight, if there's no congressional anything, there's no anything, right? So like, when you talk to people who have cosmic clearance and you find the real ones, it's not that everything they say is the same, but there's an amazing preponderance of similarity in their reports. And you've been with me on this journey for over 20 years now. And you've seen me interview these people. And you've seen me bring them out. And you might want to discredit one here, one there. That's fine, you know. But I always look at the aggregate. What's the overall weight of evidence that we're seeing, and what does that tell us? Okay, so the overall aggregate of evidence is remarkable. It's remarkable. So let me just paint for you a little bit about what I think full disclosure is going to look like real quick. If we actually did get full disclosure, we're going to find out that somebody else owns Earth and that we are not in charge. I was just getting a briefing recently, so there's some exciting things I can tell you right now. One of which is that apparently these Draco reptilians have been at war with people who are more human-looking that arise on various planets all over the galaxy for a very long time. The Draco is an enormous problem, and essentially we lost. Or at least that's the way it was looking. These beings are horrific. They are cannibalistic. They have sharp teeth, vertical slit pupils. They look like evil demonic creatures. They don't have horns and they don't have wings, but they look really freaking scary. And unfortunately, apparently the Germans made a deal with them, and elements of our secret space program have made deals with them, and we're paying rent. And that includes things like enormous disappearances of machine guns during Vietnam. Apparently, almost half of the M16s, if you really dig into the books, are totally unaccounted for. And apparently these are space pirates, and they're taking these and selling them on other planets so that on a primitive world, some ruling elite can be formed. They have machine guns, nobody else does. They have M16s and ammunition. They'll pay out the wazoo for that. Pay in the form of whatever payment they get from that planet, okay? A lot of this payment is human trafficking, by the way. When we pay rent, this is missing people, okay? Go look at the work of David Paulides. Go watch the movie Missing 411 if you want to be scared to death. Why do we have national parks? Why have we designated these areas as national parks and you're not allowed to go there? David Paulides is wonderful. I met him in person. I want to support as many people in this community as possible. And we had some really serious talks. And I said, David, you know, the most likely explanation for everything that you see in these reports of missing people in the parks, it's probably some kind of extraterrestrial thing going on. He agreed, because you have very strange things where people go missing, but then their clothes are found neatly folded up in a pile, and their binoculars are stuck up in a tree somewhere. And there's lots of reports of things like the sound of a door opening up in the ground and people just disappear, like the sound of a big metallic... One of them was right in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York. My grandparents used to take me up there to go camping, and I'm like thinking, damn, I'm glad this didn't happen. Lots and lots and lots of people go mysteriously missing in these national parks, but then there's anomalies, right? Like, why did they disappear so fast when the other people were right around the corner? How did their clothes end up perched on a precarious ledge where nobody could hike to, right? It appears that we have a variety of extraterrestrial civilizations here. Many of them are malevolent, some of them are evil, and they have underground bases, and they will just grab people. Now, actually, there's different types of ways that this occurs. What do these various ETs use us for? Apparently, one of the most common things is that we actually are great workers. We're incredibly adaptive. You could take a human being and put them into a civilization that's far more technological, and they will quickly get up to speed and learn how to use tools and how to build things and be good workers there. And we already have a whole entire big Hollywood movie that was very much disclosure-oriented that told us this. It's Guardians of the Galaxy. What happens at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, you remember? The little kid, he's talking to his mother. His mother's dying on the deathbed with cancer, and she gives him the cassette tape of music. And then he goes outside crying about her imminent loss. And here's this spaceship, and he gets abducted, and he gets brought into their world, and now he has a smart suit, and he has weapons and all kinds of cool stuff, and he eventually comes back to the Earth. Okay, so that's disclosure. We're going to find out that there's millions of people who have already entered into a whole new Star Trek civilization, and they're working, and they're happy, and they're doing stuff. Well, other people are not treated well. Other people are killed, and they're killed in very diabolical and horrible ways. So, like, this business of us effing paying rent in the form of humans, which might even be millions a year, based on some of the numbers I've heard, it is absolutely unacceptable and it must stop. And so one of the briefings I just got is, we took a really crappy deal, and now we're at the point of parity with the Draco. We can fight back. We do not need to let them take our people anymore, and we can and we will take our planet back, and that is the Ascension. If you look at the Ascension stuff, if you look at the Bible material and all these ancient prophecies, they acknowledge these evil beings. They're called demons, okay? You just got to open your mind a little bit and go for the ancient alien version of this. Demons are real and angels are real. And it's essentially a proxy war that's being fought through human beings. They don't actually show up in person where we see them most of the time, but they are influencing how we think. And so the positive beings are trying to steer us down a positive timeline, and they connect with people to help us do that. And the negative beings are trying to steer us down a negative timeline. They connect with people on Earth to do that. And in that case, those people form an elite group and they rule the planet. But they get directives from these negative extraterrestrials. And that is what we've reported. You can watch our movies. In fact, now, the latest movie that we just did is actually, it's just ad-supported now. So you can go and watch The Cosmic Secret, which is a really incredible movie on YouTube, for free. It used to be something you had to pay for, but now it's on an ad-based model. So there's lots of places where I've talked about this before, and I don't want to be too redundant because you guys always want new material. So anyway, we don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to be the underlings of any race. We don't have to pay them. We don't have to honor their alleged claim that the Earth belongs to them. Because if you look at what I'm saying, if the material that I'm promoting, the Law of One, etc., is actually Christian, and I'm going to argue, I argue it in the book, and I'm going to argue it in my new class that it is. I'm not going to bang you over the head, but I want to make the point, okay? If the benevolent ETs are the good guys, then that would suggest that the Bible is actually true, and the prophecies are true, and that means Satan, if you will be defeated. It's just that Satan is a lot more complicated than we thought, because it's actual real demons that are working with people here on Earth who do all kinds of crazy stuff, because apparently what's happening is they need to keep the planet in a state of fear and anger and sadness and desperation, because that creates an energy that these Draco actually feed off of. So I've had insiders tell me that the Draco will literally, William Tompkins said this, among others, they'll literally park their ships over a battlefield, cloaked, you can't see it, and they just soak up all this energy of torture and death as everybody's dying, because they feed off of it. And so in the new course, I'm going to show you the scientific proof of this and how this works. I'm going to show you the science in Russian studies and laboratory experiments that prove that health can be sucked out of things that are alive energetically through the focus of our intentions. So just as a little preliminary to that, I would say, when you go after someone, you try to attack them and you try to hurt their feelings, if they start to crunch in with their posture, it might actually be that on some energetic body level, they're losing energy. But I'm going to get a lot more into that in the class. So the point is, maybe also, just like the Law of One says, part of our entrance into what they call fourth density, which clearly seems to be happening right now, this ascension process is underway. Don't expect to wait for something. It's happening now. And how you choose to live your life is going to have every impact on how this process plays out for you and where you end up going if the sun does decide to go through a dimensional shift and release a bunch of light and heat and energy. You want to be ready for that. And all you have to do is be 51% service to others. You could be 49% negative, manipulative, evil, conniving, controlling. But if you're 51% positive, loving, patient, forgiving, supportive, you're still going to make it for graduation, okay? So my focus is on making sure that you're ready for that and documenting all of the amazing research that goes around that, some of which is contentious. So that's why we have to do it through a conference. Anyway, we don't have to play underlings to these beings anymore, and we have, or we will very soon be able to build the technology to fight back, and that is a war worth fighting. We don't have to be subject to any type of evil anymore, whether it's from people or extraterrestrials. And I fully support that initiative, and I have dedicated my resources and my time and my energy to making sure that we're going to be able to fight that war. And that's why we're doing this technology, folks. I just want to be clear on this. Don't expect that once ascension happens that we just get to sit back in the lazy boy and enjoy the show. There's going to be new things that happen when we join this community of extraterrestrials, and one of them is we're going to have to fight back. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. So all of these things that are happening now are precursors that are building up to stuff that's going to be happening soon. But again, we also have to look at the context. And what did Dr. Carol Rosin say? She said when the negative elite really have their backs up against the wall, they got to do the fake alien invasion. Okay, so that might be like right around the corner. So let's look at how this seems to be playing out here, folks, because I told you about fear. If somebody just stabs you in the dark and you didn't hear anything, you're not afraid, you just die. But if the lights turn out and then you hear all these noises and it builds up and it builds up, you have time to become afraid. Fear needs time. You have to create information that creates fear, and then the fear has to incubate. So maybe that's what's going on. I don't know, but this is my theory as to what's happening now. So back to the slide. Less than a month after the DNI comes out and says all this stuff, we have pyramid-shaped UFOs being pushed very heavily, and I'm already 1 hour and 51 minutes in, but we're going to get through all this. It's not going to take a whole lot longer. This is a very visually rich section. So you can't get more authentic than military.com if you want to know what the military is doing. So here we go. Here's military.com. And the Pentagon says that the video release of pyramid-shaped UFOs is authentic. So, unbelievable. Government officials have confirmed that recently released videos showing triangular objects flying off the coast of San Diego are real. And here it is, military.com. It says it's prompted a plethora of questions. And then down here, in a report last month, a former national intelligence official said a forthcoming government report will reveal difficult-to-explain evidence surrounding UFO sightings. So pyramid-shaped UFOs, what in the world is going on here? Is it like Egyptian? Is it like the ancient gods have returned? Is it the Goa'uld from Stargate? What's going on here? Well, I want to read this one to you in particular from Global Research, where it says leaked footage of pyramid-shaped UFOs is real. Now, what you're seeing in this picture is infrared night vision footage taken from a naval ship of the U.S. in 2019, so recently. And there is clearly this pyramid-shaped object that is blinking not only with little lights along the edges, but big lights that flash across the entire face. It clearly looks like some kind of aircraft. It's blinking like an aircraft. It does not look extraterrestrial at all. It looks like an aircraft. But let's read this article. Newly leaked video of flashing triangle-shaped objects that flew over a U.S. warship is real, the Pentagon said, after UFO investigators released the clip and several other puzzling photos online. The photos and videos were distributed by documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. We love him. I haven't met him yet. I'd be happy to work with him. I think he's great. In fact, he has a movie that came out on... let's go back to the camera real quick. Jeremy Corbell has a movie on Bob Lazar that came out with the Studio 1091, which is the same studio that made both of my movies. So we're on the same team. And if you go to my website, divinecosmos.com, I wrote a huge article just about that movie and all the cool stuff that Bob Lazar had to say in the movie that was new. So I would recommend that. So I highly support George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell. Never had a problem with them. I don't know if they agree with everything that I'm doing or have done before. They might not like all the insiders that I've had, but I really, really hope that Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp both are going to watch this video. And if they haven't, then please tell them about it, because they need to know this. Because Jeremy Corbell is going on news after news after news show, which is great. I'm not jealous. I really am not. But he's saying that we don't know what this is. And I'm going to show you that we do know what this is. I'm going to show you now that we do know what this is. And this may be the last time I ever get to use YouTube. Okay? But it's worth it. Okay? It's worth it. Back to the slide. The leaks of videos that they got, the videos were handed to them, include a night vision video at sea, a series of grainy infrared images, and smartphone photos captured from the cockpit of an FA-18 fighter, which had previously been posted online. And the Pentagon confirmed in a statement this week that the leaked photos and videos were, remember, it's a frickin' flying pyramid, folks, that looks like an airplane with all the blinking lights. These leaked photos and videos were captured by U.S. Navy personnel, but they wouldn't call them UFOs. Now, Susan Gao, who you're going to see in just a second here, she seems like a perfectly nice lady, and I don't have a problem with her at all. I'm really happy they're doing this, honestly. I really support everybody who's doing this and getting us this information. She said, I can confirm that the referenced photos and videos were taken by Navy personnel. She said this in a statement to the Black Vault, and so here's Susan Gao. She looks like a normal person, not some conspirator, not some ugly villain, and that's what I feel. I don't think there's anything wrong with her, okay? Corbell says the video and photos were originally shared at an ONI briefing on May 1st, 2020, and then later were leaked to him. So they gave it to him last May, right as all this stuff was ramping up, and we were all locked down. He says he worked with Knapp to verify the authenticity and the context of the footage before releasing online. That's what good UFO researchers do. These are authentic photos and video from actual military encounters with UFOs generated to educate high-level intelligence officials within our military on the nature and presentation of the UFO phenomenon. So they're using these videos to tell people in the military UFOs are real. Well, those people obviously had not been briefed before that, right? And classified stuff, man, a lot of people don't know about the classified stuff. So there's plenty of people in the military that don't know what's going on. Let's be clear on that. Perhaps the most startling video is the one recorded from the deck of the USS Russell, which appears to show several unidentified flying triangles flashing, just like airplanes, in the clouds off the coast of San Diego. The brief video was shot through a night vision camera in July of 2019, Corbell says. The USS Russell observed and recorded multiple pyramid-shaped craft, and these are massive. They're like over a mile wide is the estimation. They're huge, okay? The video shows a distinctly triangle-shaped object moving through the clouds above the warship. The object joins two other fainter triangles in the sky before the video ends. Now, that I think is a misunderstanding because it looks to me as if it's a distortion off the camera lens where the one image of the triangle is actually reflected on the lens and dimmer. So that's what I think it is. But they do say that there was more than one out there when they were doing this film, and I believe that. Corbell says the object seemed to slip effortlessly into the water. That's the transmedium travel, right? Slipped effortlessly into the water instead of making a splash and taking damage upon impact. He adds that the Navy sent a submarine to search for wreckage, but they found nothing. And can I just say this? Can I please say this? My publisher makes me do this too. I hate the fact that we can't capitalize the word Navy anymore. I hate it. My great-great-great-grandfather's brother was John Paul Jones, who founded the Navy, okay? The original founder of the Navy is my blood relative. So, can we please go back to capitalizing Navy? Anyway, I digress. You're not allowed to do it anymore, and the publisher won't let me do it, but I would love to capitalize Navy. The third event described in the briefings involves a series of photos captured by a weapons systems officer from an F-18 in Virginia on March 4th, 2019. Notice the timing, they're around the same time. The weapons system officer snapped photos of 3 objects that afternoon in about 20 minutes, according to George Knapp, who was Corbell's collaborator. The objects were described as a sphere, an acorn, and a metallic-looking blimp in the intelligence briefing, they say. And so here are those pictures. These are some of the pictures. So the blimp thing on the left, actually, we're going to see something that looks exactly like that in just a second. The sphere in the middle just kind of looks like, I don't know what the hell that is. It might be a spherical craft with a coronal discharge around it. But interestingly, that craft is seen to fall right down into the ocean and go right into the ocean without any type of problem. It just keeps on going. And then you got your acorn one on the right. Now, again, folks, we're not talking about YouTube videos, puppies and kittens anymore. We're talking about the government disclosing this. You follow me? This is heavy stuff. This is crazy. But, back to the slide, are these really extraterrestrial? Now, I'm going to tell you that the answer is no. I'm going to tell you that these are not extraterrestrial at all, that they are made by elements of the negative elite that you would call the military-industrial complex that has essentially become a breakaway civilization, as my colleague Richard Dolan has called it, a breakaway civilization where we don't get to know anything, but they built technology and they might use it against us in Carol Rosin's fake extraterrestrial invasion. That's what I'm so concerned about. Why are they pumping up these pyramid-shaped UFOs? If you type it in to any type of Google, YouTube, whatever, thousands of links are coming up and they're all mainstream. Pyramid-shaped UFO, pyramid-shaped UFO. It's this huge push. Is that the ballet dance of fear? You have to start telling people something so that when you show it to them, when it starts attacking cities with a laser, this massive particle beam laser that the thing has got mounted on it, okay, that might be able to be used to start fires. Just going to put that one out there. Strong possibility that fires could be started with these little guys, and they're hidden and you don't know that they're doing it, okay? If they decloak them, and they start zapping things with lasers, and there's massive destruction. Look at what we've seen over the last year, folks. Look at the kind of big lies that we're getting told, the withheld information, the degree to which this can change our lives. So if there's any possibility that they're setting up exactly what Carol Rosin told us about, the fake alien invasion, and if at some point these videos will not be able to be made anymore because this will become one of the banned topics as well, it's entirely possible it could happen. This might be the last video I ever do on this platform, okay? But I'm not going to withhold all the good stuff just because of fear. If they're going to try this, then we need to know, and enough people are seeing this video. We got 18,000 viewers right now, so enough people are seeing this video that it's going to happen, folks. The truth is going to get out there. If they try this now, they will not be able to, which means they'll probably change the plan, and I'll never be proven right, and they'll never use this avenue of trying to create a shock and awe, mass distraction, try to throw people off of the trail of what's really going on, which is the exposure of the negative elite. What better way than exactly what Dr. Werner Von Braun told her was going to happen on his deathbed. Okay, so I'm very, very nervous about this, actually. So please go to ascensionmysteryschool.com. Please go to the email field. Please give us your email address, because I might not have any way to contact you except to send you an email, and I want you to know where I'm going. But also, please, with credit, I want you to steal the information that I'm about to share. I want you to borrow the information, say that you got it from me. Please don't not include me, because this is a debut. What you're about to hear is a world debut, okay? But please give me credit, but I'm very clear on this. I want you to develop this information. I want you to make videos about this. I want you to spread it far and wide. I want you to drill into the sources I'm showing you, and I want you to take it to the next level, because we need to talk about this, because if everybody's focused on one thing, what does the magician do when you're looking at this hand? He reaches into his pocket, grabbed for something else, okay? That's what's happening right now. The pocket is the flying triangle. And what they might pull out is exactly what Dr. Carol Rosin warned us about, so we need to study this stuff. Now, the alliance, in my view, is the U.S. military, and that's why none of the Joint Chiefs of Staff have changed as we went from one administration to another. You may have noticed that. And if you go back to videos that I wouldn't dare make now, that I did just a couple months ago, as this whole thing started in January, there was a lot of very, very strange stuff going on that suggests that we are not dealing with any type of normal transition, okay? That there is executive orders underway, that all of this is it's basically a dunk tank. The military created a dunk tank, put a couple people up in the chair, and everybody's throwing stuff at them now, and the chair is going to fall down. They're going to fall in the water, and it's coming pretty soon, okay? So look at this. Back to the slide now. Are the military bases of the good guys being threatened? Well, one of the top voices out there, as an insider, who's gone public now, he has 151,000 subscribers on this particular platform I mentioned earlier that's related to the telegraph machine. He says, and this is his real verified account, I've proven that now, I've looked into it, UFO sightings have tremendously increased around our military bases. And he didn't say anything else, folks. So is it possible, and I'm starting to sound like Ancient Aliens now, is it possible that the reason why there's all this UFO activity around our military bases is that if the Alliance starts doing certain operations, that the bad guys want to hit back? That's what I think is going on. So it's all being set up and it's poised. So this war could become kinetic, and it might not be 10 days. You might be out of power for a lot longer than that. I don't know. I hope it's 3 to 10 days, but I would absolutely, without question, stored water, rice and beans, food in the freezer, canned food. You can crack open a can very easily and eat it, okay? Please, please, please have at least a month of supplies now in your house. And if you have done it before, but you've been kind of slacking off, top everything off this week. Do it soon, because this all could be about to get really freaking crazy, folks. Life on Earth could be about to get really, really crazy, because they do not want certain pieces of information to be seen by the public. And if they have any cards they can pull out of this pocket while the other one is up here, they're going to do it. All right? I've eulogized on that enough. Back to the slide. What else do we have out there that we've heard about in UFO literature that looks similar to these pyramid UFOs? Well, they look an awful lot like the infamous TR-3B. And we remember September 20th last year, they flew one in daylight. Thousands of people saw it over New Jersey. Tons of videos were taken. But now everybody just says, it's Photoshop. But wait a minute. The mainstream media's acknowledged thousands of people saw this and that the military didn't do anything about it. So it's probably one of ours, guys. Well, all the way back in 1998, Edgar Fouche revealed his whistleblower inside information that the TR-3B is a blimp. And so this is his diagram of what it looks like. And sure enough, it looks exactly like a blimp. And so you notice the date. So this is one of the earliest leaks about the TR-3B because it's 1998. And he says that it's got anti-gravity and helium in it. Okay, it uses both. So this is another Fuchs diagram from 1998 where he's showing you where the gravitational generators are. And so those things on the, he says they're hydrogen, oxygen, variable vectored rocket engines, right? So apparently, you get partial lift from helium or other gases, and then partial lift from these anti-gravity engines and partial lift from rockets. Or maybe they figured out they don't need rockets now. I don't know. But anyway, what if all of this is actually a dirigible? So let's talk about dirigibles for just a second. In World War I, you may not realize this, but both the United States and the Germans used these massive flying Zeppelins. And the Zeppelins caused insane amounts of damage. They could fly, they were gigantic. So first of all, imagine this object that's just so big that if you're in a city and it's flying over the city, you can't even see the whole thing. All you see is part of the belly. That's how big these dirigibles were. And both sides were making them, and they got really enormous, thousands of feet long. You'd have guys up there with machine guns, and they're just boom, 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 shooting everybody. And what are you going to do? I mean, if you shoot at this thing, you think you're going to bring it down? No, because it can take a whole bunch of holes, because there's individual cells inside. It's not like the whole thing is just a balloon. There's lots of little cells that hold air, and if you pop through one of them, they got other ones left behind. It wasn't until the Hindenburg crashed in New Jersey on an airfield in the early 1900s that this technology was kind of written off, or so we think. But the military already had the experience of using dirigibles successfully in war, and apparently there was a stealth blimp program that we're going to learn all about here in just a minute that was actually conducted. So, back to the slide now. As we look at these various pictures of TR-3Bs that people have reported from eyewitness reports, yeah, you know, you could totally imagine that this would be some kind of blimp based off of the same technology as World War I, except instead of a cylinder, why not make a delta? And all the different TR-3B images, they sure do look pretty blimpish. And one of my insiders who works in aerospace says the TR-3B is actually really lame and underwhelming and not at all an exciting craft. It's a very foolish and lame mock-up of some of the stuff that is real that we've seen that's not ours, okay? But this is ours. So, let me just ask you this question. If you could build a blimp that looks like an equilateral triangle, and we call that a TR-3B, what if you take 4 TR-3Bs and stick them together? Well, that's what Dr. Pete Peterson told me is exactly what we, the military-industrial complex, has already done. So here you see the 5 basic platonic solids, these basic geometric forms that I talk about in all my work. And you can notice here that any one of them could be made out of a piece of cardboard. You just cut out these patterns and fold them together, and then you get the geometry, right? So you can look at the cube is a little more complicated, but the one on the top, the tetrahedron, is really simple. It's just 4 triangles connected together. And you just cut them out and maybe give them little flaps and fold them all together, and you get a tetrahedron. So here's another example of how you could do that, where you have one on the base, and then you just fold up the sides. Honestly, I want you to think about this. How difficult would it be to take 4 TR-3Bs, maybe they're sandwiched together like this, right? And then you just stick them together so you have a 4-sided object. Very symmetrical. The wind, it's going to be great for the wind, right? Because as the wind blows, it's just going to move around. You can keep it off the ground with some anti-gravity or some conventional propulsion. Maybe there isn't even anti-gravity at all. Maybe it works without any of it. You know, we don't really know. But the stealth blimp, okay, this is a big, big thing. Now, the tetrahedron blimp has been seen before it was announced by the mainstream media through the pioneering work of Jeremy Corbell and David Knapp. And in fact, in December 2018, we had a very enigmatic series of sightings in which a blimp was seen over the Pentagon by 2 different camera angles. And I didn't even know there were 2 different camera angles. I had to find it through a particular channel on that app I mentioned before. And so this is days ago now, and she posts like, I don't know, 150 things a day. So it gets buried very, very quickly. But this was about a week ago. So it says video number 1, Tucker reacts to video of UFO confirmed by the Pentagon. Video number 2, December 18th, 2018, pyramid UFO filmed from 2 different perspectives, dismissed as computer graphics. The Pentagon knows exactly what these pyramids are. And then video number 3 is a compilation of pyramid UFOs documented over the past 10 plus years. You really think the Pentagon doesn't know what is going on, especially when it flies directly over the Pentagon? Oh, there's nothing to see here. So sure enough, I watched the videos, and they are amazing. There's one video where the guy has said that anybody can post it if they want to. He gives free license. It's really hilarious because he's filming this levitating massive tetrahedron over the U.S. Capitol, or over the Pentagon. And he's not really saying anything, and then in the middle of the video he goes, "Honey?" And that's all it's really funny. If you watch it, everybody laughs at that point. Other people have enhanced the footage and brought out the contrast to show this thing. It very much looks like a really nice, sharp, tetrahedron-shaped blimp just slowly kind of tilting in the air like this. You know, that's what it is, folks. It's not UFOs and it's not aliens. It's not. What's so fascinating is that in addition to and somebody tried to attack him in the comments, and he pins the comment on the top of that video. He did not add anything to this. He is not a faker. This is not computer animation. He uploaded it and he confirms that it's real. Then we have another case on the same day, same time, where a guy's driving around the Pentagon and filming it from different angles, and they're really going nuts. "Oh my God, bro, what is that thing? Is it an ancient god?" And it's totally Beavis and Butthead, or Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, all the way. Anyway, I watched both of the videos. I can't play videos on a live stream or I'll get taken down. But, I might play them in my conference. So, anyway, you'll see these if you go back to this particular channel on that particular app I mentioned. And we do need more analysis. I'd like you to make videos about combining these 2 camera angles to see that this actually was real and it was filmed by different people at the same time. So when they're talking about this thing flying over a USS naval ship, that's not the only one, okay? So here's another headline from the same thing. Alien invasion fears as mysterious object appears over the Pentagon. This, again, is in Washington, D.C. in 2018. Strange pyramid spotted hovering over Washington, D.C. You can kind of see it there in this image, and again, it moves over time. And here's another shot from that same article where you see a different angle of the tetrahedron. I mean, it's very big and it's very scary. So let's just go with the interpretation. This is the one that I like, right? I like the interpretation I like the interpretation that both the good guys and the bad guys have this particular ship. That there's several of them, or maybe many of them, that have been made. You take 4 TR-3Bs, you stick them together, you make a big dirigible. It's scary as hell. It looks like some alien thing. And wouldn't that be ideal to create the ultimate FF alien invasion event? Because it looks like the capstone on the top of the pyramid. It looks like the eye of Providence, the all-seeing eye. So what if you have this capstone floating in the air and a laser beam comes out of the eye and starts destroying cities? Would that not be the exact type of symbolism that these people love? And especially if they're burning up California with it already, okay? We have reason to believe that that's what's happening. So this is a heavy situation, but this thing is a massive weapon. It has massive offensive and defensive capabilities, and if they're putting it over the Pentagon, it's probably either one of 2 things. It's either a threat or it's a protection. So let's just go back to the slide now. Why might the Pentagon have wanted protection on December 18th? Well, remember, who was in power at the time? And what were they trying to accomplish? They were trying to accomplish a lot, which is now all coming to fruition. So let's just think back to December 2018 and remember news that was going on and think about, hey, was this a contentious period for the Alliance? Were they feeling threatened that the DS might attack them? Absolutely. Don't forget that it was December 5th, as it says here on this day, the website, National Day of Mourning for former U.S. President George H.W. Bush as he lies in state at the Capitol Rotunda. So The eulogy was delivered by his son, and it was attended by the president's predecessors, including Obama, Clinton, and Carter. Now, if you remember the journalism that we did on this before, which I can't be too specific about, it appears that everyone there got a nasty little letter, or many people got a nasty little letter in their brochure for the funeral. Well, that's probably a subpoena. And so we're probably dealing with something sealed that we don't know about yet, and they got it at that time. Because in order to subpoena somebody, you have to know where they are. And these elites, you'll never know what address they're in. They're never going to accept a service of process. So that's a good time to do it. Well, they're going to be really pissed when that happens. So that's December 5th. And remember, this was December 18th. So now we're not even 2 weeks away. Basically, less than 2 weeks away. So then December 7th, court filings by U.S. federal prosecutors and special counsel Robert Mueller against Michael Cohen appear to implicate the president on campaign fraud and Russian dealings. So this is another escalation. That's the beginning of that whole thing, December 7, 2018. Another one happens on the same day. Brazilian spiritual healer John of God, or João Teixeira de Faria, accused of sexual abuse by 4 women, and over 200 more come forward in the following week. This could have been what broke the whole thing apart right there, because this man was very prominent. A lot of celebrities went out there to talk to him, and now we find out that he apparently, according to these 200 women, was a serial rapist and violator. So that could be a thread that gets pulled and starts to unravel the whole sweater for the deep state. So I don't know. Anyway, here's another one. December 10th, the UK's leader cancels their vote on the Brexit bill in the face of certain defeat, because they know that if they lose control of this economy, they lose control of everything. So that's another one that they're very worried about, that could make them want to do something rash. December 19th, just one day after this UFO was seen protecting the Pentagon, protecting the president and all of his people, he announced victory over the IS and planned the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. Well, this again is huge. This is the kind of thing the DS really, really doesn't want. You notice they immediately put him back in afterwards when they think they were in charge. And then last but not least, on December 22nd, we actually started the government shutdown. All this crazy stuff was going on. So the cabal could have very easily attacked during this time. That's why I think they had that thing over the Pentagon. Or maybe it was the bad guys, and maybe they put it over there to threaten the president and to say, if you effing open your mouth, if you go beyond certain levels, we're gonna hit you and we're gonna blow you up. And that might be what this was. It might have been a threat. So check this next slide out, because this is extremely disturbing, and this only came out on April 20th, so just 4/20, by the way. What a great day. From U.S. Strategic Command, posture statement preview, it says in the tweet, the spectrum of conflict today, April 20th, is neither linear nor predictable. They're saying an unpredictable war could happen out of nowhere. They just said this on April 20th, folks. This is very important. We must account for the possibility of conflict leading to quote-unquote conditions. We must account for the possibility of conflict leading to conditions which could very rapidly drive an adversary to consider nuclear use as their least, back to camera, bad option. Spontaneous, unexpected conflict in which a nuclear exchange is their least bad option. Why would U.S. Strategic Command say this, folks? What are they... you have to think a little bit, right? Well, okay, what's happening in the world right now, and who's being accused of it, and what might they do if they're found guilty? That's what they're saying. Nuclear could be the least bad option. Here's another example of this. Take a look at this. Nuke alert. Strategic Command warns Biden administration must prepare for nuclear war out of conflicts that could escalate rapidly. So this is extremely disturbing. And what it reveals again is they can't really tell you through the media, because the media isn't going to tell you anything. But some really big stuff could be about to go down here. Now, there is a precedent for these blimps being used to make threats. And I direct you now back to the slide. In December 2009, the exact same pyramid blimp with the exact same appearance appeared directly over the Kremlin. That's right. Here's an article from Daily Mail. Russian internet sensation. Giant triangular UFO hovers over Red Square in Moscow. hovering and remember, this is December 2009. December 18th is when this article was written. So, hovering ominously over the city, this video of what appears to be a triangle-shaped UFO has left Russians baffled. Sitting motionless in the sky above the Kremlin in Moscow, clips of the unexplained object have become the most viewed videos on Russia's YouTube. The two videos, one taken at night from a car and one during the day, were both filmed by amateurs, and they are incredibly awesome, by the way, and they look exactly like the ones filmed over the Pentagon. Here's another one, UK Telegraph, UFO pyramid reported over the Kremlin. A giant pyramid that appears to be a UFO hovering over the Kremlin has caused frenzied speculation in Russia that it is an alien spacecraft. So I'm going to read you a little of this one from the photo here. The object has been compared to an Imperial cruiser in the Star Wars films, and witnesses estimated it could be up to a mile wide. Two film clips exist which appear to show the same object, and footage have been repeatedly playing on Russian television news channels. And sweetheart, you mind opening up the window just so we can get some air, because it's getting really hot in here. I don't want to sweat. So the craft was said to have hovered for hours over Red Square in Russia's capital. The clips of the quote-unquote invasion have gone to the top of Russia's version of YouTube. The identity of the shape has not been confirmed. Russian reports have ruled out a UFO, but police have refused to comment. So here's another one, and this is actually from the Russians' own media. This is Pravda, okay? Huge triangular UFO spotted above Moscow's Red Square. A strange flying object was spotted in the sky above Moscow today on December 18th. Muscovites could see a large triangle-shaped object hovering above Red Square. Many people filmed the object on their cell phones and uploaded the videos on YouTube. These videos have not been lost. You can go find this, by the way. So, actually, let's go back to the slide. Yep. So, here's the thing. Pete Peterson told the members of Project Camelot and myself in July 2009 that on November 27th, 2009, President Barack Obama was going to go on television. They'd already booked out 4 hours of television time. And he was going to tell us that UFOs exist, and he was going to introduce us to 6 different human-looking extraterrestrial groups. This was going to happen on live television. It's going to be broadcast all over the world. And obviously it didn't happen. The information was leaked by Bill Ryan of Project Camelot. He was on stage in the not the Barcelona, but the Switzerland event that was done. I was in the audience. He was on stage, and he blurted out the date, and I was horrified because I knew that that meant it wasn't going to happen. You can't actually say these things if you get this kind of a briefing. But you can go back to the transcript of when he was on stage, and you can read him describing this whole thing. It's on projectcamelot.org. If you go to their archive and you go to the conference from Switzerland and then you see his talk, it's in that transcript, and you can read the transcript on their website. So anyway, Camelot got in enormous trouble for this. Carrie Cassidy actually, apparently according to Pete Peterson, was being threatened, and he had to take a deal to stop them from knocking her off, actually. They had planned out 3 different places where they were going to do it. And he also said that she was going to lose the brakes on her car while she was driving in the mountains, and that was their preferred method of how they designed this, what was going to happen to her, to make it look like it wasn't, a murder. So we had all that information come through. November 27th came and went, and nothing was happening, but Obama was going to win the Nobel Peace Prize as of December 3rd in Oslo, Norway. On December 2nd in Oslo, Norway, a very, very strange thing appeared over the sky called the Norway Spiral. So I'm going to do another video where I break down the fact that the Norway Spiral was created by HAARP, the High Altitude Auroral Research Project, that there's a base right there in Oslo, and even where the beam is coming from, when you map out where the base is, the beam is coming right from the base. What is the Norway Spiral? I'll show it to you in the next video if I can still have a platform. Otherwise, I'll do it on Rumble or one of the other ones. But it's of... You're seeing this thing that is... How do I explain this? I actually completely lost my train of thought. Believe it or not. That doesn't happen very often. What was I talking about, sweetheart? You lost your train of thought too. Wow, okay. Because of you. Because you lost... It's telepathic. You got to focus.
The spiral.
Oh, so the Norway Spiral, right. So anyway, Go look that up if you haven't done it, because there's great video of it, and you see this very, very luminous spiral that looks like an everlasting lollipop in the sky. It's all kind of bluish white. It's turning, and it's just like rows and rows and rows of concentric circles all in a spiral. And then the most outrageous part of the whole thing is that the middle of it opens in a very, very precise way in a perfectly symmetrical circle, and it just opens up like a black hole. Okay, that's what happens in the Norway spiral incident. Lots of footage, lots of video. Obama was going to receive the Nobel Peace Prize the next morning, and I wrote articles on this at the time, and then I met with Dr. Stephen Greer a year later, and he told me in person, privately, and I've disclosed this before, I'm not betraying him. Dr. Stephen Greer, the head of the Disclosure Project, told me in person that Obama was going to tell people that UFOs were real when he got the Nobel Peace Prize. What a great time to do it. What a great time to bring up your buddy on the side who happens to be a human extraterrestrial, isn't even a regular human being. Okay? That's what we're talking about. But the people, according to Dr. Greer, people came up to Obama before he went on stage and they said, if you do this, if you move forward and you do this and you bring that guy up on stage, the next time we create one of these, we're going to do it right in front of Air Force One, and nobody will ever know where you went, because that's a portal, and we'll portal you off to somewhere where you just disintegrate, and nobody will even know what happened. You're just going to vanish, okay? And we put it out there so that people know that these portals exist, so if we need to use one on you and we need to take out the President of the United States with this portal, we're going to blame it on aliens. But it's you. Now, apparently, at the time, Obama was working with Putin on this plan, and so Dr. Greer also told me that Putin was threatened as well because they parked this triangular UFO, this tetrahedral UFO, the pyramid, over the Kremlin for several hours. Because it's a weapon, it's got a big old laser beam, and they could have blown the hell out of the whole Kremlin. So the message again is, even because this happened around December 18th or thereabouts, right? So Obama's speech was December 3rd. They probably had other plans of how they wanted to do it. And then the UFO was the threat, saying, if you do this, we're going to blow you up. Which is, again, why it concerns me that the exact same strategy was deployed over the Pentagon in December 2018. Do we know if those belonged to the President of the United States at the time? Absolutely not. It could have been the deep state. So that disclosure that I got from Greer reveals that this is something that is a weapon that's offensive and it's being used to prevent disclosure. Because they were going to do it, and the blimp was used to threaten Putin. Okay? I'm going to do a whole show on this if I can do it on this platform. I got wonderful slides on this, way more than I'm going to do now. Okay, so here's the next thing. In 1991, Popular Mechanics magazine actually talked about these flying triangles and said they might be blimps. So let's look at the slide. Here is the cover from December 1991 from Popular Mechanics, where it says, Top Secret, Reshaping the Look of America's Air Power. And I don't know, whatever they got on the cover is probably some old piece of crap from 1958, and it doesn't even work. But anyway, that's one of the things that's out there. So check this out. This is from that article from that December 1991 issue. The Big Wing. Meanwhile, several Antelope Valley residents say they've seen a craft that simply strains credulity. And this is the Hudson Valley and other types of UFO sightings, okay? According to reports over the past 2 years, a vast black flying wing, here we go, and remember, you take 4 of them, put them together, you got a pyramid, that's all it is, at 4 triangles. A vast black flying wing, estimated at between 600 to 800 feet in width, has passed silently over city streets, empty desert, and rural freeways. The craft moved so slowly that one observer said he could jog along with it. A pattern of seemingly random white lights on the vehicle's black underside provided constellation camouflage against the starry sky. That makes sense. You back project on the bottom. Of course. Observers who followed the craft long enough detailed unlikely maneuvers in which the vehicle stopped, rotated in place, and hovered vertically, presenting a thin trailing edge to the ground. Again, just like a blimp. Although such sightings encourage those who link the military with unearthly technology, a mammoth quiet flying wing may have a conventional explanation. It could be a lighter-than-air craft pushed by slow-turning propellers. There it is. Certainly, such a vehicle could elude Doppler radar by slowing down to a crawl. Alternatively, the fact that the craft holds its station vertically suggests it might serve as a huge reflector for a bistatic radar system. Other possible missions it could be used for would include troop deliveries or covert surveillance. So here again is frickin' Popular Mechanics saying this flying black triangle could be a lighter-than-air craft pushed by slow propellers. Sightings of all these aircraft may offer a preview of 21st century air power, or they may be hints of experimentation, hardware versions of engineering concepts. Denied classified data, experts must simply guess. In the late 70s, says Wolfgang Demisch, an aerospace analyst with UBS Securities, quote, there was concern at senior levels of government that a lot of technology was about to disappear because people were close to retirement. Projects in the 1980s may have pushed this technology forward as a way to maintain the national capability that we were building up with a lot of money in the 1950s and 60s. Masking such capability behind classified special access status has been the trend for the past decade, but that trend is shifting now. The growing number of unofficial sightings may signal that security will soon lift, just as the F-117A Stealth went public because daytime flight requirements would reveal its aircraft existence anyway. If the black air vehicles now prowling desert skies also venture into the white world, the technology spin-offs may be enormous. If they don't venture into the white world, or at least not until right now, then these aircraft will remain America's most closely guarded secrets. So, let's take that principle that Popular Mechanics just suggested, that this may be a big old blimp with slow propellers just kind of lazily crawling through the air. Well, somebody was actually working on that exact technology beginning in 1959, and this is where I'm probably going to lose my channel, but I'm ready. Are you guys ready? What do you see in the comments? Tell me if you're ready. Okay, so some people are getting buffering, but if you are getting buffering, we are recording it locally, and it looks like it's working fine. So we have an excellent, clean, pristine copy, and we will re-upload it. So if you're having any problems with buffering or echoing, I'm going to re-upload this, so you'll be okay, all right? So somebody says, David, please explain flying objects that look like mirrors in the daytime sky. Well, yeah, that could be a blimp, too. Black triangle slowly passed over me in Flint, Michigan, 1997. Blimps wouldn't charge the air with electricity. Well, okay, but the thing is that it could be a coronal discharge because part of this is an electrostatic anti-gravity that it's using, okay? So don't assume that it's a regular blimp. It's an augmented stealth blimp that uses artificial gravity, okay? So back to the slide now. The actual flying black triangle started out in 1959, and it was called the Arion. And it was developed by this company called JP Aerospace. Now, on this particular link that exists as of right now, it'll probably disappear very quickly. So please, please type in this link and go grab this PDF and download it and save it, although I'm basically going to read it to you and show you the entire thing. But here it is. The history of JP Aerospace and their development of the Arion flying black triangle. Here we go. Arion Corporation was founded in 1959 by Monroe Drew and John Fitzpatrick in Princeton, New Jersey, which is right near where the Hindenburg crashed in the horrible fiery crash. The firm was named in honor of Solomon Andrews' 1863 airship Arion, which was a three-hulled craft, also built in New Jersey, because that's where a lot of this blimp stuff was happening, which propelled itself without an engine by alternately becoming positively or negatively buoyant to generate forward thrust while porpoising through the air. Andrews' second variable buoyancy propulsion airship was the single-hull Arion 2. All this is going to make sense once you get the pictures, folks, so just hang in there. Arion Corporation designed and built then the Arion 3 hybrid airship. They also developed, you're going to see that in a second, they also developed and patented designs for a family of semi-buoyant and heavier-than-air lifting body aircraft collectively known as Dynair ships. The flying black triangle that everybody's seeing is a Dynair ship, and you will be blown away when you see the picture of the Dynair ship. Just wait, you're going to love this. The small Arion 7 and Arion 26 heavier-than-air aircraft, which you could actually fly, okay, were subscale aerodynamic demonstrators for the lifting body design patented for much larger Dynair ships. Now, just real quick to explain this, In order to get this thing to sell, they had to build a working prototype, and they actually built one in the shape of the flying triangle that did not use helium at all. And they found out that just the triangular shape alone, with the blimp, they could make a plane that actually flew with no helium. It just flew off a conventional propulsion alone. So the helium's only going to make it work better and save fuel, so it's going to last even longer, you see. The official Ariane Corporation website went offline in 2016, but it has been archived at the following link, arianecorp.com. The small sorry, that's a repeat slide. So, the Ariane 3 was a 3-hulled blimp. Going back to that, I whizzed past that way too fast. So you're going to see pictures of this momentarily, so just hang in there. You're going to love it. It's an amazing, amazing thing, and nobody talks about this. If it wasn't for that one website, this whole history would have been lost. And they probably broke some kind of security classification anyway, so I applaud them for doing this. Ariane 3 started in the early 1960s up to 1967 when they started making Dynair ships that are flying triangles. Ariane 3 was an experimental rigid hybrid airship. This is all tech geek speak, I'm sorry, but this is what they wrote. Comprised of 3 side-by-side streamlined hulls connected by airfoil-shaped truss structures that generate aerodynamic lift during forward flight. Each of the 3 rigid hulls was 83 feet long, that's huge, and 17.5 feet in maximum diameter. The complete vehicle had a maximum width of 55 feet, 16.7 meters. Each hull contained 6 helium gas cells. The helium gas cells in the outer skin of the airship were made of DuPont Tedlar, apparently a very Kevlar-like material that's puncture resistant, right? That makes sense. You don't want it to fall over while it's coming out of the... And that's what actually ended up happening. It's very sad. Details on the airship design are presented in patent number US 3180590A, pressurized airship, filed in January 1963 and granted on April 27, 1965, and you can still find it on Google Patents and other places at this link. Now, it doesn't look all that great. It's kind of, I'm not too excited about this. It's 3 hulls, whatever. No, folks. Wait till you see the triangle. Hold on, okay? The triangle's going to blow your mind. To manage buoyancy without releasing helium gas or ballast, the helium temperature was controlled by a propane-fueled heating system and a series of cool air blowers. Not very exciting. On the ground with the helium cooled, the Ariane 3 airship was designed to be about 400 pounds heavy when it's filled at 85% helium capacity. So now here's this massive thing sitting in the hangar in New Jersey under the control of John Fitzpatrick. So let's zoom in on him. Look at how big that thing is compared to him in that little seat. It's huge. Okay? 2-person cockpit. Here's another cutaway drawing from Popular Science where you see the inside. And you got the propeller on the back. There they are at Mercer County Airport in Trenton, New Jersey, 1964, standing behind this massive thing. And look at how big it is compared to them. And this picture is even more amazing, where you see the guy climbing up the ladder to get inside. And look at it up close, okay? Just how massive this thing is compared to the other planes on the tarmac. Look at the plane behind it on the left. This thing is huge. It's huge. And then you see the guy again climbing up the ladder. So I mean, it's a big, big object. But then it's going to get even more interesting, folks. Ariane 3 was constructed between 1959 and 1965 at the Mercer County Airport near Trenton, New Jersey. While preparing for its first flight, despite the Kevlar material, Ariane 3 was badly damaged while it was taxiing in 1966 as a sudden gust of wind caught it during a sharp turn. The fragile, lightweight Ariane 3 was flipped over onto its back and then got flipped back again onto its undercarriage, and it was damaged and it never flew. That's really sad, but that's what happened. So a very similar stealth blimp idea to the Ariane 3 was discussed in 1990, as you see here in this article from Los Angeles Times. New secret weapon, the stealth blimp. Aerospace, low-cost, unmanned, and invisible to the radar. It is being developed under an Army contract for guerrilla surveillance. This is 1990. Again, most people thinking of stealth aircraft probably think about the B-2 stealth bomber, invisible to radar, fast and sleek, with this estimated price tag of $500 million or more. Well, not really, but that's another story. Not Carter Ward. When his thoughts turn to stealth aircraft, he thinks about something stubby with a top speed of 28 miles per hour and only costs $195,000, the stealth blimp. For 3 years, Ward, a civilian engineer for the Navy in Port Hueneme, has been working on a 69-foot prototype of a stealth blimp, meant to be unmanned, radio-controlled, and invisible to radar, so far receiving about $700,000 in funding from the Army. And it looks just like the Ariane 3. Actually, we'll see a picture of it later. Now here's another illustration of this, a different idea from 2012, and this apparently was never even built. The one in 1990 was. But it says, check out this giant spy blimp before the Air Force kills it. And then again, they're looking at the budget, and you see the budget starts out at like, it's practically zero, and then it's hovering around 500 grand, and then it goes up to like $3.5 million, and that's when the Air Force said, no, we're not feeling it anymore. But here's the one that they did build from 1990. That's the picture of it from that article. Doesn't this look awfully strange and awfully familiar, folks? Didn't we just get disclosure from the Pentagon? Didn't they just leak these 3 pictures to Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, and didn't they say that it was a metallic blimp-shaped UFO? Well, maybe it is a frickin' blimp, right? It looks exactly like the one they actually made. And this is the picture from the 1990 article about how it could be used for telemetry, right? So the UFO that they took a picture of, again here, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, just tilted on its side with little stubs on the top and bottom, probably to hold, like, I don't know, weapons or antenna or whatever. You know, they got to add some things. But it's the same craft. And this one that they talked about in 1990 looks exactly like the Ariane 3. It's just that it's got 2 holes instead of 3. So they know what the hell they're doing. This thing didn't get canceled. This thing didn't get buried. They just didn't pay off the people in JP Aerospace. They stole it. And he knows it. We're going to hear from him in just a minute, and you're going to see where he admits that they stole it from him and developed it without his knowledge. So how do you solve this horrible problem where the thing suddenly flips upside down and crashes? Well, initial repair efforts after it crashed were redirected to reconstruct it into a new, larger, metal-clad, delta-shaped configuration. A delta is a triangle. It's a triangle. Wait till you see the pictures. You're going to be so blown away. I mean, this might be one of the most exciting things you've ever seen in your life. Honest to God. I'm not kidding. A larger metal-clad delta-shaped configuration known as the Ariane 3B, which was 100 feet in long and 75 feet wide. The work was discontinued as Ariane then focused on more advanced and more capable Dynair ship designs. So this Dynair ship in 1967 in a classified program, a flying dirigible, looks kind of familiar, doesn't it, folks? Whoa, yeah. I mean, this is the flying black triangle. This is a predecessor to the TR-3B. And yes, it's not just a diagram. They actually have patents and all kinds of stuff, folks. The Dynair ship freighter patent from 1967 to 1969. It was a semi-buoyant lifting body aircraft designed by Ariane for use as a civilian and military cargo transport. It's cheap. You could load it up with lots of stuff and you could move it around. Well, that never happened. They kept it classified, and they want to make it look like a scary alien invasion when they use these things to blow us up. Hopefully that never happens, but if they do, this is what they're going to use. The basic concept for the Dynair ship is addressed in U.S. Patent 3,486,719A airship, filed on December 4th, 67, and granted on December 30th, 1969. So it took 2 years, but they did get it. So here are some of the pictures of this damn thing. I mean, this is a later version that's bigger. This is the Ariane 340 because it's 340 feet long. 340 feet long. Look at the little trucks down there. It's crazy. This was the earlier design, the Dynair ship, so you can see it on the cross-section scale. And notice at the top where it says figure 2, down at the bottom, there's 2 cubes in there. That's the storage area. Then you look at it on figure 3 from the side, you can see you can fit 3 18-wheeler truck bodies in that thing. It's huge. And that's just the smaller one. So you could hold an incredible amount of cargo on these. It's just that if you did it now, everybody would say, oh my God, it's a UFO. Holy crap. No, it's just a blimp, dude. It's just a blimp. The main features of the Dynair ship were: The hull is a low aspect ratio blended delta wing with vertical stabilizers that form end plates on the wings. The craft is semi-buoyant. The large delta wing contains inflated helium lifting gas cells. So now that you're looking at it, you can see all the little propellers on the back, slow-moving propellers. You can see where they got all those mounted. And then again from the side angle view here. The cargo compartment 94, which I just talked about, and cargo rails 96 are sealed from the helium's volume and suspended within the hull by a web of steel support cables that distribute the concentrated load of the cargo compartment over the large area of the upper shell of fuselage. This is all very technical, and I don't need you to understand all this, but I just want you to know how much work went into this. This was a serious project that millions of dollars were spent on in conventional money. Cargo was carried in containers suspended from the cargo rails. The propulsion system is mounted along the wing's trailing edge, and it's a bunch of propellers. A Dynair ship can taxi like a fixed-wing airplane. Yeah, on the ground it has landing gear and it can roll around. And it actually takes off. It will fly like an airplane without helium, as they did in this test that you're going to see. So they need to protect it from the wind. So because of its relatively lightweight for its size, care had to be taken to ensure that it's not upset by the wind. Examples of unique operating provisions described in this patent are: the landing gear was adjustable, so the ship is maintained in a nose-down altitude while it's on the ground. So the landing gear goes up and down to try to ride the wind. The landing gear was permitted to swivel freely on a vertical axis, so the wheel units act as a crosswind landing gear, permitting takeoff and landing with the aircraft's center line aligned to the wind and not the runway. That's brilliant. It's another thing that probably works very well. Swiveling wheels. Who would have thought? The aircraft may become too light for safe ground operation in windy conditions. So there you go. That's why you got to have swiveling wheels and a lot of shock absorbers in the landing gear. The ship needed to be kept partially ballasted. That means it has weight by fuel, cargo, or both, particularly if you have severe winds. So you got to make sure it's heavy enough. A Dynair ship could fly if it's pressurized by air instead of helium, because it does work as an airplane, although its ability to carry cargo is then reduced. So it does work as an airplane. And then they lay it right out here. Here's the link where you can go read this patent. So pause the screen or just type in that patent and you will find it. And you can do all this research, and I want you to make your own videos. So now we get to the big daddy. This is where it gets really crazy. The 340-foot-long Ariane 340. So it says here, number 4, this is from that PDF file. Ariane's design concept for a full-size commercial freighter based on patent 3,486,719A was the semi-buoyant Ariane 340. This Dynair ship freighter design had a length of 340 feet, a wingspan of 256 feet. It's huge. And a total lift capacity of 400,000 pounds. Wow. That's an enormous amount of cargo. It was powered by 4 5,500 horsepower Rolls-Royce Tyne turboprop engines mounted along the trailing edge of the delta-shaped aerobody. The Ariane 340 was designed to carry up to 6 intermodal containers. 6 containers, loaded from tractor-truck semi-trailers, using built-in lifting and handling equipment in the cargo bay. The intermodal containers were suspended from a structural framework that distributed the cargo loads via the network of catenary cables into the upper surface of the aerobody. So there's a little picture of it. And they also say the Ariane 340 was trimmed to be aerostatically slightly heavier than air prior to takeoff. This enables the Ariane 340 to taxi, take off, and land from an airport like a conventional airplane. Guys, it's not aliens. It's not extraterrestrial. Look at how small the 18-wheeler truck is down there on the bottom left as they're loading it up compared to the size of this 340-foot-long craft. It's freaking massive. And then here's the cutaway drawing where you see how this internal cargo hold can hold actually 6 different truck containers. It's incredible. And here's actually a photograph from Technika Molodova. I forget exactly how to pronounce it. It's the Russian Technology for Youth magazine in which they profiled this invention. And then the guy's going to say later that actually they did make these, but he just, it was taken away from his company, basically. So because they didn't actually build this, or he claims that they didn't build it, in order to get them excited and prove that this would really work, what do you have to do? You can't get the big one done. You got to get a small one done first. That's called a proof of concept, right? You make it small, and then everybody's happy, and they say, okay, we believe you. And actually, we're dealing with the same kind of thing right now, but I can't talk about that just yet. I will soon, but you got to have a prototype, folks. You can't just say we're going to build something and have people give you money. It doesn't work. So number 5, the Ariane subscale Dynair ship remote-controlled flying models, 1968 to mid-1970s. Ariane built a series of small gasoline engine-powered, remotely controlled, heavier-than-air flying models, little models, to confirm the basic aerodynamic characteristics of their lifting body design for the Dynair ship. A series of 4-foot models were tested from spring 1968 to 1969. 4 foot long, that's not very big. 7-foot Ariane 7 flew a 14-flight test program in mid-1970 before it was destroyed on its last test flight. Then they made a piloted craft, so it's not a remote control now, 1969, 1971, and they call it the Ariane 26. The proof of concept aircraft for the Dynair ship, which means that hopefully they're going to finance the Dynair ship, and they did, they just didn't do it through JP Aerospace, was the piloted subscale Ariane 26, which lacked lifting gas and operated as a heavier-than-air craft throughout its test program to further validate the aerodynamics of the Dynair ship. The basic design of the Ariane 26 is described in U.S. Patent 3,684,217A aircraft, filed on September 30th, 1970, granted on August 17th, 1972, just a few months before I was born. The patent abstract describes the aircraft as follows, quote, "This invention relates to aircraft and particularly to delta-shaped, that's flying triangles, lifting bodies having high sweep angles. Such lifting bodies possess favorable stall characteristics, meaning they can just hang out in the air, and they're capable of relatively high cruising speeds and relatively low landing speeds. They can be made to carry a large payload efficiently and may be operated heavier than air or with helium, either lighter than air or slightly heavier than air." So I think I just read this to you. So again, just to really emphasize the point, it lacked lifting gas and it does operate heavier than air. So this thing flies as an airplane. And we already talked about this. The patent, I read all this to you. But again, I built out slides. I apologize. So again, delta-shaped lifting aircraft. Huge triangle aircraft. That's what the patent is for. And he was pitching this to the military. And once again, you can read the patent right here. So if you look at this patent, this is the diagram of their crappy little, I'm sorry to say it's crappy, but again, they didn't have much money and they just needed to get something built, some kind of prototype so they could land the contract. So they built this weird, stubby little fat airplane that's just a little flying triangle in the shape of a balloon. She says, it's cute. Okay, yeah, it's cute. And you're going to see pictures of it because they found it in a hangar. Believe it or not, it still exists. They still have it on display in a museum. The Ariane 26's structure was composed of welded aluminum tubes, some salvaged from the wrecked Ariane 3, covered with aircraft cloth and aluminum sheet. After completion, the aircraft was transported by road to the National Aviation Facilities Experimental Center, or NAFEC, near Atlantic City to be flight tested. So here's the actual photograph of the prototype. And this was piloted. You could get inside. There it is on the ground. Here it is taxiing in 1971, taxiing test. And will it actually fly? The Ariane 26 made its first flight piloted by John Olcott at NAFEC on September 7, 1970. But it proved to not have enough power and it could not climb out of its ground effect. Uh-oh. They made a series of modifications and brief test flights with new propellers and vortex generators. What the hell that is? Interesting, huh? Vortex generators. Added to the aero body, the testing then resumed at NAFEC on March 1st, 1971. Now they got better propellers, better engines, and the aircraft was able to fly and maneuver successfully on several flights before its engine died because it had limited operating life and it ended the program. So John McPhee recounted the story of the test program in his book, The Deltoid Pumpkin Seed. And I'm going to show you that cover. So here they are, literally taking off and getting airborne, and here they are in flight. So yes, folks, right now, here on YouTube, in the last few minutes before they take me down, is the first flying black triangle officially developed and flown, and you can see it from the ground. And here's William McElwee Miller Jr. with the Ariane 26 posing in front of it. The key finding from the Ariane 26 test program, as reported by William Miller, was the aero body was an aerodynamically feasible concept and a basis existed for realistic studies of much larger aircraft. That's their finding. If you build it, it's going to work. It'll fly. Following the apparent success of the Ariane 26 project, Ariane Corporation's board voted unanimously to proceed with developing the Dynair ship for civilian and commercial purposes, and John McPhee recounted the story of the test program in his book, The Deltoid, which means triangular, Pumpkin Seed. So here is the copy of The Deltoid Pumpkin Seed by John McPhee, looking very, very early 70s. I had a lot of books in my parents' library that looked like this. Tom Swift, move over, it says on the top. The incredible, true adventure of the creation of a flying machine that makes Apollo seem easy and flying saucers look real. A beautiful book with more thrills than fiction, says Philadelphia Bulletin. $1.50. There you go. So check this out. This is so freaking cool. For 40 years, this Ariane 26 prototype was stored in a hangar. It had some dust on it, but it was in perfect shape. They covered over the engine, which was very smart, and they actually dusted it off. And it says here, December 18th, 2019, Facebook post by Free Flight Aviation stated that the Ariane 26 will be on display at the Air Victory Museum at the South Jersey Airport in Lumberton, New Jersey, which is right where the Hindenburg happened. Following are the 3 photos from that post. So you can see this is pictures of it as it was being moved to the Air Victory Museum. And here it is on display at the museum up close. And then there's a close-up detail shot on the bottom of the propeller. So this thing actually flew. How weird. And then here's a shot of somebody who made a little model of it and designed it exactly the way it looks. And sure enough, that is a flying, workable, remote-controlled, remote-piloted model. So then they made further improvements to the gigantic Dynair ship. Because remember, they already had one that was 340 feet long that they designed, and it would have worked if it had been built, and actually it was. They just didn't get to see it because it went classified. So further evolution of the large Dynair ship. The Ariane 340 was just the first of the large Dynair ship design concepts, and the designs continue to evolve really without funding into the 1990s. Ariane patent 3,761,041A lifting body aircraft, granted September 25th, 1973, describes improvements to the Dynair ship's flight control system to improve takeoff and landing distances and improve pitch control in flight. Patent figures 1 and 2 show alternative configurations for the control surfaces along the trailing edge of the lifting body's fuselage. Coordination among the control surfaces is described in the patent. So once again, they're linking to where you can read the patent, and it's just awesome. I mean, this thing would be utterly massive, and they did build it. They're just not telling you. Okay, this is the predecessor to the TR-3B. They took this idea, they modified it, and they stole it from JP Aerospace. That's what I think happened, folks. So in 1974, they actually proposed making one that was totally, totally massive, the size of the TR-3B, the size of the sightings that people are now getting, 1,000 foot long. So it says right here, in 1974, Ariane Corporation proposed 3 new versions of the Dynair ship, and the logistic carrier that's much larger than the 340-foot Ariane 340 with a length of 1,000 feet, gross weight of 4,200 tons, and it can hold 3,300 tons of cargo. Wow! And it can travel 150 miles an hour. Why are we not using these? Right now, if this was declassified, we could do a lot of great stuff with this and make shipping costs much, much less expensive. That is true. FedEx, all that stuff would go down in price. That's absolutely true. You could fit tons and tons of overnight mail in one of these things. So it says at the bottom here, sadly, none of the above proposed Dynair ship concepts were funded, at least not with JP Aerospace. That's the sad part. In January 1975, William McElwee Miller Jr., president of Ariane Corporation, made a presentation at NASA's Interagency Workshop on Lighter-than-Air Vehicles, in which he described the design of the Dynair ship and potential applications derived from a phased development program that is outlined in the following graphics. So you got to build things in phases, right? So phase 1 is research and surveillance. Phase 2 is research with systems, economies, commerce, bulk lifter, and mass transport. And then phase 3 is remote area logistics and oceanic surveillance. So then Ariane Corporation also commissioned this work of art where Navy is now taking credit for it being not a UFO, but they got Navy written on the side, and it's a large Dynair ship patrolling in the Arctic. So these things would hang out for a really long time. They're really cheap, and they carry a tremendous amount of cargo. So they're very useful. And remember, 1975, NASA got to hear all about this. So everybody on the inside knew about this thing. Everybody knew about it. Everybody. because it was paid for. The military was into it. The Navy was into it. Everybody knew about this. In the mid-1970s, they added jet flaps to make it more stable as it's trying to take off and in the air. In the mid-1970s, Arian introduced the concept of jet flaps to augment the amount of aerodynamic lift generated by a Dynair ship for a given amount of power. While this concept was applicable to semi-buoyant and heavier-than-air Dynair ships, it probably had its biggest impact on the heavier-than-air Dynair ships. And by the way, folks, we're 3 hours in, and I'm almost done with these slides, okay? We're almost done. Arian patent 4,108... I'm sorry, let me say that again. Arian patent US 4,149,688A lifting body aircraft for VSTOL service filed October 1st, 1976, granted April 17th, 1979, describes the application of jet flap aerodynamic devices that augment the lift by directing the propeller's slipstream over a deflected flap along the trailing edge of the deltoid triangular hull. Small canard wings mounted forward on the fuselage tilt to direct propulsor thrust in coordination with the jet flap. So there's those little jet flaps that they added. And I wouldn't be surprised if it also helps it with takeoff. And notice also they've added propellers on the front as well as the back. Probably just, better thrust, better lift. And again, this is something that they built to be able to fly without being heavier than air as a regular little airplane. So this is their jet flap Dynair ship concept circa 1975. You have the tilting rotors in the back that look like the infamous X-22, the original quadcopter, which, actually we might come into possession of one of those pretty soon, but that's another story. I'm not going to talk about that either. Anyway, the original thing is called the X-22. It had 4 propellers on it that you can tilt, and it's the predecessor to all these machines they're making now. It was already done in the 1960s, and it did fly. Go look up X-22, the real X-22, the original one. You'll see it. Not the other one that I like. So, as we go into the 1990s, without really much funding, JP Aerospace continued to tinker and make things that they were hoping would get financed, but nobody ever did it because they actually already had it and they just didn't tell them. Heavier-than-air Dynair ships. Versions of the Dynair ship that, like the Ariane 26, lacked lifting gas and operated as heavier-than-air aircraft at all times were proposed by Ariane. Following are 2 Ariane patents for heavier-than-air large Dynair ships, configured as radar surveillance platforms. None of them were allegedly built. And this is patent 4,896,160A, granted January 23, 1990, describing a heavier-than-air airborne surveillance platform with long endurance and high-altitude flight capability. It carries planar phased array antennas arranged to scan in a continuous pattern in all azimuthal directions from its deltoid hull. You can read the patent here. So there again, it kind of looks like your rinky-dink little aircraft, but okay, it's cool. It's still cool. Oh, this is the next one. That's the one that we see at the bottom. And that's the one where they had those radar antenna arrays that you see out the top in the middle there. The antennas that stick forward. There's 3 of them. You can see that in the middle of the craft on the bottom. And then here it is from the side with those new flaps they designed. And then here it is from the top with the 3 antennas. So this is absolutely real, folks. And it looks exactly like the Flying Black Triangle, doesn't it? Now we're really starting to zero in. About the only thing that's wrong now is the flaps. And then they got Dynair Ship 2, the final designs by Ariane. Look at that shape. I mean, it's incredible. This is exactly what people are seeing. Somebody built it. On their archived website, Ariane presented their final concepts for an ultra-large airlifter known as the Dynair Ship 2. Quote, the current U.S. military reawakening of interest in very large hybrid aircraft concepts shows the validity of Ariane's Dynair Ship 2. Using both buoyant and aerodynamic lift, Dynair Ship 2 is the newest variant of Ariane's lifting body airship concepts. Based upon a configuration of Ariane's research in the 1980s, Dynair Ship 2 is a manned or unmanned aircraft concept that will allow the transportation of very large cargo weight and volume. FedEx, folks, think about it. Save a lot of money. They keep raising the prices on us, right? Why put it in little planes when you can put it in one great big fat one? Over great distances for military and commercial, i.e. FedEx, logistics. So there it is again up close. It's gorgeous. I want to see this built. I mean, we should be using these. It would save us a fortune on overnight shipping, for one thing. So, okay. That actually shouldn't be in there, but it's another thing that I'm going to be developing later. That's in 1997, at the time of the Phoenix Lights incident. And in my next show, I'm going to talk about all the weird stuff that was going on when they did Phoenix Lights. And that was one of the most troubling ones for the deep state. So if you actually type in TR3B patent on Google, you will find US 20060145019A1 for triangular spacecraft. A spacecraft having a triangular hull with vertical electrostatic line charges on each corner that produce a horizontal electrostatic field parallel to the sides of the hull. Now, what's really cool about this is that in this patent, you actually get to see this gas-to-gas intercooler concept where you have hexagonal cells, and so some of the cells have hot air, and then they're surrounded by 6 cells, as you see in the middle on the left, that have cold air. This keeps the darn thing from overheating and catching on fire. And it also shows how you could shoot projectiles through it and it wouldn't go down because there's lots and lots of cells. Thank you. I'll trade you. Actually, you can take a little of it. So there's an excellent website, folks, that really ties all this stuff together that I was just talking about, and then directly links it to the TR3B and the Flying Black Triangle sightings. And, you know, it's unapologetically called thestealthblimp.com. And it's been around since, I think, 2007 or 2009. And I found it very early when it came out. And I've been kind of hanging on to all this information for a long time, waiting for the right moment, which is today. So here's the original page image from archive.org as this thestealthblimp.com website went up. Here's what it says, and this is very important. I'm going to read everything here. Have you seen it? Thousands of people all over the world have seen a giant black triangle of enormous dimensions. It is not a spaceship. It is the largest stealth craft in the world. Veiled in secrecy for decades, this enigma can now finally be revealed as the stealth blimp. Where did it come from? In 1981, read this very carefully, folks, the Navy contracted Lockheed, not JP Aerospace, they got to use their own people, to develop a high-altitude surveillance platform called High Spot. NASA did feasibility studies for High Spot. Remember, they had been shown the JP Aerospace stuff in 1975, and they also did a sister program called HAP, High Altitude Platform, whatever. See NASA documents here and here, so you can click on those links and read the documents. Shortly after that, the program became classified. Whoa! In 1981 is when the Navy contracted Lockheed. Then the program became classified, which means they don't want to tell you about this, and no more press releases were issued. Then, in 1982, Lockheed proposed a mammoth quote-unquote stealth blimp. Lockheed actually called it a stealth blimp. And they said that the blimp would have the ability to project a star field on its belly so people looking up at the sky wouldn't be able to see it. That's typical camouflage, right? Arion Corporation designed, that's what we've been just reading about. This is where I got it from, folks. Arion Corporation designed a massive airship containing phased radar arrays for the Navy and Air Force. They patented this design located here and here. So again, very important to remember. In 1981, the Navy contracted Lockheed for High Spot, and then shortly after that, in 1982, well, shortly after 1981, the program became classified, and no more press releases were issued. And then again, remember the year, 1982, Lockheed proposed a mammoth stealth blimp from Arion's design, which means it would be a Lockheed Flying Black Triangle that has the ability to project a star field on its belly. And they patented it, and they show you the patents. So now this is one of the figures from, it's just basically one of the older NASA studies showing the feasibility, the milestones that they have to achieve, and the timeline in which they achieved it in months. So you can see this was a very complex, well-structured program. This is the HAP, one of the really early design that NASA came up with. It's really boring blimp dirigible. Obviously, Arion's designs were much better. They had 3 of those, and then they went to the Delta. So this is the cover page from the Silent Joe 2 final report. And remember, after they did all this type of research in 1982, it all locked down and it all went classified. If you go to thestealthblimp.com today, at least as long as it stays online, this is what you're going to see as of right now. The stealth blimp, and tongue planted very firmly in cheek. Oh, it's the world's largest mystery. I love that. It's a joke, of course. Now, this is incredible, right? Because remember, 1982 is when it became classified. Lockheed took over. They stole it from JP Aerospace. They redesigned it. JP Aerospace doesn't know what the hell happened, but they took the design and they built it. And then what do? They start doing test flights that same year. So they built it pretty quick because Ariane had already designed it. So they just had to build what was already in the blueprints, right? So New Year's Eve, 1982, in the Hudson River Valley, 25 miles north of New York City, right next to New Jersey, where they have those 6 military bases, where one of them probably has a hangar and a field big enough to let this thing fly. So December 31st, 1982, hundreds of witnesses, including police officer Andy Sadoff, report sighting a V-shaped object in the sky. It is enormous, at least the width of a football field, and it moves very slowly and close to the ground. It is completely silent, like a blimp, and it only gets noticed because of its very bright strobing lights that they added, A large wave of sightings occur again beginning in March 1983 with hundreds of eyewitness reports. So just because it's 40 years ago doesn't mean this isn't very, very serious and real and worth studying again, with hundreds of people saying they saw it. Hundreds. For 6 years, until 1989, the so-called Hudson Valley Boomerang is seen by more than 5,000 recorded witnesses, spanning the states of New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and even Massachusetts. So yeah, they're probably taking off from New Jersey and just cruising around, cruising up the Hudson River, landmarks, These 5,000 recorded witnesses include lawyers, engineers, housewives, mechanics, and even dozens of police officers, including the chief of the Danbury, Connecticut Police Department. Later, J. Allen Hynek and Philip J. Imbrugno and Bob Pratt write a book on the phenomenon entitled Night Siege, the Hudson Valley UFO Sightings, published in 1998 by Llewellyn. There's a huge number of books written about the Hudson Valley UFO sightings. There's tons of them. So again, please remember that the images that I'm about to show you from artist reconstructions of what these things looked like, over 5,000 people saw this flying over New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So here it is. They had colorful, weird lights with different colors, and so that's all stuff you could do with very easy military technology. It is a flying blimp. It's flying over the Hudson River. This is supposedly one of the real pictures of one of these prototypes, so maybe they tried building one in more of a disc shape. That appears to be what this was, or a boomerang maybe, like a crescent. This is another Hudson Valley UFO photograph that is supposedly real and suggests that it was a boomerang. This is a mock-up reconstruction, very accurately built off of an eyewitness testimony. And here's another one that, again, is directly off of an eyewitness testimony. Whoever was there only got to see one of the wings, I guess. Here's another version of the same craft that was actually designed to look like the one that Kenneth Arnold saw, the boomerang that he saw in the 1947 infamous Kenneth Arnold sightings. That was one of the types that he drew. So yeah, it would make sense they'd build one that looks exactly the same and put all these cool lights on it, scare the bejesus out of people. If the Reagan thing didn't work out, they could make an alien invasion right then, 1982, 83, all the way through 1989. The whole 1980s, these things are flying all over the place. So now this is S.D. Greco, who created a diagram of all the different types of these craft that people actually witnessed. Now, what I believe was happening here is that each of these are accurate diagrams. And so you can see one of them is like a pie shape, and that's probably the one that had the lights in a circle. So they were trying out different prototypes. They were testing it over real places to fly. They wanted to see if it was stealth. They wanted to see if anybody would even notice it. And they tried different shapes, different designs, different types of things. And that's what apparently led to the TR-3B. So in 1997, we have an incredible sighting over Phoenix, the Phoenix Lights. And it was huge, all the stuff that was going on. In the number of people who saw it, in the thousands, okay? Even the governor of Arizona saw this. This illustration from the original USA Today article is a diagram of the boomerang that people saw, which again is a blimp. It says for 106 minutes on March 13th, people saw something like this V-shaped object flying over Arizona. UFOs? The only thing certain is that it still haunts them. Well, now that you know about Aryan, you can totally see this is an Aryan type of blimp. And that's, again, a reconstructed, computer-designed, artist's interpretation of what somebody said they saw. So here it is on Fox. 22 years later, people still talking about the mysterious Phoenix lights. And there again is a piece of art that's another illustration of what people were seeing that night. So it's not a triangle, it was just a boomerang. But they built it in different ways. Just like the Hudson Valley one. They did it over Phoenix. Now, again, if they had these all throughout the 1980s and then they kind of didn't use anything, there's another one from the Phoenix lights. And apparently they did drop flares, by the way, to conceal the aircraft. So there were flares dropped that night, but they also flew the aircraft. And the aircraft went way far away from where the flares were. It lasted for 106 minutes, which is much longer than flares could last. And apparently thousands of people saw this. Now, going back to the camera real quick here. One of the things that I saw in a documentary on the Phoenix lights that I was not able to find fast enough to get in the show, which greatly upsets me. It was in one of the original documentaries, and there was, I believe, a Latino male who was saying that he saw the aircraft, and he specifically described that as it passed overhead, that the bottom of the surface of the thing was rippling like it was made out of fabric, but it had what looked like machine parts on it, but the machine parts were rippling with the fabric. So you see, all they need to do is have LED projectors or regular projectors on rods and poles on the bottom of the thing and project what looks like mechanical parts up onto the body of the craft. But because in this case over Phoenix they flew it so low, eyewitnesses could actually see the material of the blimp moving with all these alleged mechanical parts that aren't real, because the thing is intended to look extraterrestrial. They don't want you to figure out it's a blimp. They stole it from Aryan Corporation, they put it through Lockheed, and then they fly it over the Hudson Valley all throughout the 1980s. And then for some weird reason, why would they do it in 1997? But they did. Maybe they were threatened again, That's what I would expect, and that's why I had that other slide in there. So again, the last thing I want to show you here, going back to the slide, is that the surviving person from JP Aerospace admits that his invention was stolen from him and developed, and that's what these flying objects are. And this was on a very important website called The Drive, and they have a subset of that called The War Zone. This is official military journalism. We talk giant V-shaped airships, space, and the Phoenix lights with the founder of JP Aerospace. And it says, after years of flying exotic airships, the company plans to create massive orbital platforms and V-shaped airships that float slowly up into space. And that's February in, 2020. Yeah, so it just happened. This literally just happened. Why would they be disclosing all this now? Why would they be telling us this now? Well, there they have a hangar. I think it's in New Jersey. It's one of the old World War II hangars. We have one too, by the way, but I'm not going to tell you where it is yet. But we bought one of those. My company did. I'm very, very excited about that. So maybe we'll end up working with these guys. I'd love to build one of these. Anyway, you can see on the left the concept design, and then on the right is the actual flying prototype that they made in flight. Okay, and then the guy in the middle is the surviving founder of JP Aerospace. So doesn't that look familiar? This is their concept art for how their orbital airship would work. And it looks exactly like the Hudson Valley and the Phoenix lights. There it is, sitting around inside the hangar, and it's a float test. 175-foot wide JP Aerospace Ascender. Now, their idea is that they could put this into suborbital space and have an orbital platform that also is made from balloons, and you could dock 6 of these on there at the same time and have a whole space station for people. That's really awesome. They call it the Dark Sky Station. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. I'm going to quote to you from the article where he actually admits that they did steal this design and that these are his designs, okay? Another major undertaking is the sheer size of the vehicles. The orbital airship needs to be 6,000 feet long in order to be buoyant enough and have enough wing area to support it at the altitude where it will conduct an orbital insertion burn at 300,000 feet. So they're talking about a massive 6,000, that's over a mile wide. That's exactly what we're talking about, folks. That's the thing. Many of the images of JP Aerospace vehicles, both in prototype and development, may look familiar, as we've just seen, to those who are aware of the incidents of alleged unidentified aircraft over the last few decades. As an aside to our interview with JP Aerospace's John Powell, we asked Powell how possible he feels it could be, based on his experience, that the U.S. Air Force or another military governmental body, Lockheed, may be operating black or off-the-books lighter-than-air craft, which might explain some of these reported sightings. So that's a good question, right? There have been numerous claims made in recent years surrounding alleged secret military airships encouraged by popular lore and high-profile incidents. After all, there is some precedent for such craft, such as the Silent Joe stealth blimps from the 1960s, or Northrop Grumman's Lemva from the past decade. Despite there being no conclusive evidence... Right. Well, now there is, because they admitted pyramid-shaped UFOs, right? But at the time, there was no conclusive evidence that such airships exist. Now the military, Pentagon, has told us they exist. They just haven't said who built them. Obviously, they did. There have been plenty of unconfirmed and anecdotal reports that point to this being the case. In the early 1980s, scores of eyewitnesses claimed to have seen massive, slow-moving V-shaped aircraft floating silently through the night skies above the Hudson Valley in New York State, and other states, as we just saw. In the 1997 Phoenix Lights incident, thousands of witnesses throughout Arizona, Nevada, and northern Mexico reported seeing a similarly massive and silent aircraft. JP Aerospace's John Powell says that while his company has designed vehicles for the Department of Defense, some of which went on to the black world, he's admitting that, okay? They don't admit that in the PDF, but now he admits it in 2020 in this interview with The Drive. They did go on to the black world. Now, let's just stop for a second here, folks. They went on to the black world. What did they do? They made flying black triangle blimps. And he admits that they went on to the black world right here. So that's the Dynair ship design that probably became the TR-3B as Lockheed further modified it. So his company was ultimately, let's go back to reading the slide now. Although some of these vehicles designed for the Department of Defense did go on to the black world, his company was not responsible for the Phoenix Lights. Now look at this. Here I must tread a little delicately. Can you say NDA? This is screaming NDA. He signed something classified. He can't talk, so he must tread delicately. And if you don't speak English as your native language, tread means walk. So it means he's got to step very carefully. He's walking on landmines is what he's saying. He doesn't want to blow himself up. He doesn't want to blow his security agreement, and he doesn't want to have the penalty for that, which would be probably prison, in some military jail, if he's lucky. And it would be underground, by the way. He'd never come back again. We have built several airships and other vehicles for various DoD agencies. Look at that. He's admitting it. Well, they built the prototype. They engineered it, right? None of our programs were classified. However, after completion and delivery, our vehicles entered into programs of which I have no knowledge. Boom! He admitted it. He admits. So is this the alliance fighting back against them using these pyramid-shaped UFOs that they're now disclosing? Is this the alliance fighting back so that somebody like me and you could put this together and solve the riddle? Because now you got John Powell, the descendant of JP Aerospace, the current owner of the company, admitting that these programs were the programs were completed and delivered, and then they went into black projects, flying black triangles, folks. Hudson Valley sightings, Phoenix Lights, TR-3B, and now the little dirigible blimp that's very large, but actually is kind of a boring piece of technology. Now that you know what it is. We were testing vehicles at the time of the Phoenix Light incident. However, I can absolutely say that JPA was not, nor was our equipment involved. There have been times where our vehicles have been sighted and confused for UFOs or other mysterious things. Boom. I have also seen images of great V-shaped objects in the sky that I can say for sure were not mine. But I could note, and he's walking through the landmines, perhaps Perhaps they are the tech of a competitor. This is all speculation. Wink, 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 wink. All right. So those are all the slides. And we are done with the slides, but I want to discuss what you've just learned here because this is extremely critical. You're probably not thinking about stealth blimps right now, other than after having watched this show. And we're going to end pretty quick because we're going to do a global meditation and we'll be done. So 3.5 hours. It's not bad. So anyway, if in fact what is happening right now is that a very, very significant series of events is about to occur that may lead to maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands of arrests, all at the same time or relatively quickly, a massive worldwide public awakening. The initial reports, by the way, I can't even say anything, I'm sorry. But please go watch that story. Please go watch that story, because this is going to be the biggest frickin' thing anybody's ever seen in their life. And just because we can't talk about it doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. You have to understand that when this comes out, it is a mortal blow. The reform to certain laws of how things are being done anyway by next year completely destroys the idea of anybody getting in unless they are fairly and justly voted in. Okay? So all of this is coming to a head. It's getting really serious. And we have never had more risk. Remember the warning from U.S. Strategic Command saying spontaneous things could happen out of nowhere, where nuclear war is the least bad option. Is there anything that could be worse than nuclear war? Is there anything? Yeah. Alien invasion. They already built it. They already used it to threaten Vladimir Putin in 2009 when he wanted to do disclosure. They already had one of them floating over the Pentagon in 2018 when they were trying to take the president down with Mueller. Okay? And they don't want him doing anything funny, because if he starts doing something funny, oops, aliens blew up the White House. Sorry. That could be what they were going to do. So he's got a gun to his head all the time. Okay? So please, if you don't understand what's really going on, open your mind and please understand. Carol Rosin referenced the original founder of NASA, Werner Von Braun. On his deathbed, he said they are going to do a fake alien invasion. Don't you think that the best way to do a fake invasion is with something completely massive in size? And if it looks like the capstone on the top of the Illuminati pyramid and it happens to shoot out a beam that sets stuff on fire, that's exactly the type of symbolism they love, folks. And now they're talking about it, and they're talking about it, and they're talking about it. I am scared to death that this is going to happen, because once this happens, if I hadn't done this video, it's going to run off the rails, and people are going to say, oh my God, it's an alien invasion, after the billions of dollars of Hollywood movies that have been spent getting us ready for that to happen. Do you get it? Do you understand what I'm really trying to tell you? Do you get it? We are on the precipice of the most fantastic breakthrough in human history, the biggest awakening, the most surprising information, declassification of anti-gravity, invisibility. They admitted that in the thing about the nitinol, the memory metal, right? Back from just February. They were saying, yes, the Pentagon admits they have multiple UFOs that have crashed, and they got the metals, and they do all this weird stuff. Well, they're not really metals, but they're composites, okay, and other types of material. So, anyway, I am not at all worried now that I actually did this video, because we got, how many people watching now? Almost 16,000 people live. You can't stop it. It's been running. It still says excellent connection, so everybody saw this, okay? And at this point, I would say there's no way they're going to be able to do it. You and I, as a community, we just undercut the entire fake alien invasion, or there's certainly plenty of other ways they could do it, but they sure couldn't do it this way. And I just also want to call into doubt any alien invasion that is about to occur in light of the fact that they're promoting things that they obviously built, that they obviously own. If any type of alien invasion takes place, it's not going to be aliens, folks. They just have a lot of other craft they can use. And these things also are aircraft carriers. So a big ship like this could not only have lasers coming out of it, very high-intensity laser beams, they can spit out craft that fly around, that are not conventional looking. So it looks like an alien mothership doing an invasion. And if it creates incredible damage, they could decide who they want to damage. They could decide exactly what stuff they want to damage to try to cement in their power and their control. You follow me? So now that we've talked about this, it'll never happen. But please don't trust any alien invasion, because honestly, something of that scope and magnitude is about all they've got. Now, can we stop this? Can we stop this from happening? Can we stop them from doing this? The answer is yes. The most effective tool that we have to stop them from doing this is a global meditation. So what we're going to do now is let's anchor in the ascension. Let's anchor in that this whole thing is going to work out with our meditation. And then we're going to be done. It's just over, it'll be just over 3.5 hours. All right.
Remember how we promised we were going to read one of...
Oh, we can do that after the meditation, yeah. We can do. You can read them, actually. You have them?
There's a few of
Why don't you pull them up while I'm doing the meditation? You can read that. That'll be great comic relief.
them. Not while we're doing
After the meditation. After the meditation. That's what I mean. All right, sorry. I'm arguing with my wife and we're supposed to be meditating. We're not arguing. We're just discussing. Yeah, we'll read your funny comments. That's a great way to end. All right, I'm just going to do 5 minutes, and so I see there's 16,000 people. If you leave now, come on. I mean, will you please help us with this meditation and not just take off? Thank you. All right. I'm going to do 5 minutes, but that's enough to stop this. Okay, here we go. I just ask that you close your eyes. And remember, sweetheart, we got those funny cameras. You can zoom in on me and do all kinds of cool stuff with the joystick. We'll turn it on. There's a button on the back on the left. There you go. All right. I'd like you to place... Yeah, I can talk. Placing both feet flat on the floor and closing your eyes. And take a nice deep breath in and just gently let it escape. And then take another nice, deep, relaxing, healing breath. Any way you want. And then just let it go. Becoming more and more deeply relaxed. Having a sense of you're floating just like a nice blimp. Imagine that blimp floating through the air. Maybe you visualize the Goodyear blimp, or maybe you can visualize a Dynair ship. Imagine being in that blimp and feeling the swaying of the air, feeling the levitation, the excitement of being airborne, looking down through the window, down at the ground, through the clouds, safe and comfortable in flight, and the feeling of exaltation. You are hovering in a beautiful craft. And as you become more and more deeply relaxed, you breathe in the consciousness of the universe, the consciousness of the one infinite creator that you are, the identity that you share in your limited human form. And maybe as you feel more and more relaxed and more inspired, maybe more of that awareness is cohabitating with you in your mind, body, and spirit. And maybe you envision a warm, loving, intelligent light. A light that tells you that no matter what crazy things might seem to be happening on Earth, you are always safe. You are always protected. You are always taken care of. And you are loved more than you can possibly imagine. The living consciousness of the galactic logos is yours. And as you breathe in galactic energy, you exhale peace. And you find that this warmth is spreading throughout the planet. As the consciousness field itself that all of our minds are sharing is rising and rising and rising, the mind itself is changing, making us more intelligent, more aware, more peaceful. Or, if we're fighting it and we resist love, then we might get shaken apart and our lives might become more and more and more difficult. Breathe in the love. Breathe in this peace. And allow that love to spread all over the planet as a living white light, imagining it reaching all those who are suffering. And you feel so deeply relaxed, so content, so peaceful and comfortable. No harm can come to you. We ask that all those on earth and elsewhere absorb this light, enjoy this light, and have thoughts of peace and love and a safe and peaceful transition to the glorious new future that awaits us. We hereby affirm and decree our sovereignty. For where we go one, we go all. And so it is. All right, let's have you come back into the room. I might actually be able to time it to be 3 hours and 33 minutes now because I can see how long we've been running. And I'm probably at 3:33 point now because I'm a half a minute behind. But anyway, we're not going to hit 3:33. We promised you some reading of your really funny comments. So, Elizabeth, you want to walk them through this last little section here? Unmute yourself. Let me unmute you. Hold on. Because now I can do it.
Wow, you've got controls. Awesome.
All right. So try talking and see what happens.
I'm talking, and so
It's nowhere near loud enough. You don't worry about that. I'll worry about getting it up. Don't do that. Let me do it.
So David took a couple months off from the internet, but he was still working all the time, of course.
Yeah, because mean people suck. That was part of it.
Need a break every now and then from all of it. But so we have some wonderful conspiracy theories that really made us laugh, and people had such amazing imaginations.
Well, tell them what we did. Tell them what we asked everybody.
Oh, so we did like the What Happened to David challenge, and we just asked people to share their favorite conspiracy theory about what happened. I sound echoey, but
Please.
to myself right now.
Yeah, I can mute my mic. That'll
Okay,
help.
so I'll just read some of the ones that really made me laugh. And you see
Are you
David.
on yourself? You got to cut to yourself.
Oh, do I? Oh, sorry about that.
We just went down
There
the
we
toilet
go.
on our production valve. That's all right.
Oops, sorry. Okay. I thought you had the controls. Anyway, so we have some of these conspiracy theories, and I'm going to read some of my favorite ones. And so David has a blue shirt on, so now he can come back and do videos for everybody. So I love this one from Busted Taco Shell that says, David ran out of blue shirts and lost his dry cleaner's ticket to get them all back, which is why David hasn't been around for the last 2 months.
Yeah, and I actually did wear a blue shirt. So
Yeah, and he has a blue shirt on, so
I
that works
actually
out.
do have a blue shirt. So.
This one from Raptor Dude. This one is really funny. Edgar Casey called and wanted his soul back.
Well, it's the same soul, so I don't know if that
Yeah, well, he wanted it back, so. All right.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's funny. So let's see. This is from
It's supposed to be a winner, by the way, but they were all so good that we couldn't really come up with a winner.
There were a lot of really creative ones. Some people that should be sci-fi writers in here for sure. So this one from H. Davis. He's been rescued from Earth by ancient aliens
All right.
on voyage. That's appropriate,
Can we
right?
make that happen, please? Because I'd really love to take
We're
off
about
and
ready
go
for
somewhere
that
else.
right now for sure.
This sucks right now.
This
but
one's
I
really
think it's
funny
gonna
too.
change.
This one's funny. He forgot to hit record.
I forgot to hit record. Oh no.
Yeah. So anyway, those are some of my favorite ones, and maybe we'll read through some more and have some more
Yeah, we'll do it on the next video.
time. So thank you all for being here. Stay positive, stay strong, and continue to be kind to each other.
Do you know what you're going to talk about in my class yet?
I am going to talk about, because your class is on cycles of time and
That's a big part of it. Yep.
repeating cycles of time. So I'm going to talk about the return of the sacred feminine, the sacred aspects of the feminine in both men and women, and share how in men that really exalts the warrior spirit, and in women it returns us to this compassionate, nurturing, the affluence of feminine energy, which I feel the earth is really thirsty for.
And we hit 333 right as you were telling us
There
all
it
that
is.
stuff, which is great. So that's a good synchronicity.
So that's what I'll be doing. Okay, I'm going to go back to you, David.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
So, the last thing I just want to end with, because as you'll notice, unlike almost everybody else that does this, I'm not pumping products and ads the whole time. I'll do one little blurb at the end about the class if you're interested in it. It's going to be very comprehensive. I'm going to go through a lot of new Law of One material, and I'm specifically going to talk about these cycles of history. Now, I've never done any television on this before, but I wrote a whole book about it. My second book, The Synchronicity Key. Oh, yeah, okay. We can't both do it at the same time. And you don't click solo either. Just stop using the mouse. Let me do it. Okay, great. Yeah, it's terrible. Honestly, folks, the complexity of this live stream setup that we have is staggering. And it's just like, good luck trying to get it to work. So I'm glad that we can get it to work at all, but we both have to work together as a team to do this. Okay. And see, the thing is, I have a mouse and she has a mouse. So if we're both trying to do it at the same time, then nobody gets anything done. Anyway, very, very bizarre information regarding the idea that Jesus talks about if you are to forgive your brother, you must forgive him 7 times, 77 times. Several of the versions of the Bible say this. That number, 7 times 77, is 539. Now, did Jesus know that this was a cycle? Because there's a Frenchman in the 1970s and 60s, Michel Helmer, who analyzed history and discovered that events repeat themselves very precisely, and one of the most important cycles he discovered is 539 years long, the exact same number that Jesus talks about in the Bible. And a lot of people don't know this. Unless you've read my book, you probably don't know about this. But history seems to follow a blueprint of a series of events that we call the hero's journey, which is the mind of the galaxy, the galactic blueprint of human evolution. I talked about the Logos, the idea that the galactic mind is apparently embodied in Jesus, which allows us to have human extraterrestrials all over the place on different planets. They are all part of Christ. They are all part of the galactic mind, okay? So some of them might be evil, but they're still part of the galactic mind, and they're all eventually going to return to the oneness. If that's true, if cycles happen in historical events, then we can start to break it down and look at the specific things. And again, in order for me to really make sense to you about this, I have to walk you through it. So we're going to go through an incredible body of information describing how historical events follow the hero's journey cyclical pattern, and how in the past it was on individual nations. Individual nations have their own language, their own currency, right? Their own culture. They're interacting with each other. They're not interacting as much with everybody else. So they're on their own cycle, and then another country could have a totally different cycle with a different number of years. It's not always the Jesus cycle, by the way. There's also the age of the zodiac of 2,160 years, and I'm going to show incredible repetition of Roman history and then American history. The same thing happens exactly 2,160 years later, sometimes in many cases down to the day. And we're talking about major wars, major political events, and even the actual reincarnation of historical figures like Hitler, who appears as Hannibal. He was the warlord that ran Carthage, which Rome was warring with in the Punic Wars. Now, this is so bizarre that it suggests that there is a reason for this to happen, and the reason might be that our souls get to understand what we're going to go through when we incarnate on Earth at a given lifetime. We know there's going to be a war by the time we get to age 17, let's say. And I think you get that one. And so all of this stuff is very difficult to understand, and it takes some time to explain, but once you get there, it's fascinating, because here's the new thing, folks. Since January 2020, for the first time in history, Everyone on Earth is going through the same experiences at the same time. We're all living through that. We're all living through losing our freedoms, being locked down, having to wear masks, all of these things, losing your business, losing your livelihood. The whole world goes through a discontinuous event. Now, what I'm going to argue in this class is that when that happens, the cyclical events that used to be for individual nations now happen to the entire planet. The entire planet is going through the hero's journey. The entire planet right now is at the dark night of the soul, where the hero's quest appears that it didn't work. Actually, I think we're kind of past the dark night of the soul now, because when you go into Act 3, the allies that you meet at the beginning of Act 2 come back to save your ass. And that's what's happening right now. And I said it in my last video. You remember before the inauguration, I said, watch for the Joan of Arc thing. Watch for all these allies coming in to help support. Well, we're seeing that like crazy. Because even if you silence people online, you cannot silence the voice of reason and the voice of freedom. And the thrill in the human heart to be able to make your own money, to have a future where you might be able to earn more than just a subsistence communist income. To think about how far this could really go. To think about what could really, let's go over to this one. To think about what could really happen to us as a planet if we're all on the same cycle. These cosmic galactic cycles. Well, the law of one tells us that we're all going to be on the same cycle at the end. So in the class, I'm going to review the fact that the entire solar system is going through huge climate change. I'm going to show you pictures of all the planets where they're becoming noticeably brighter in 10 or 20 years, very discontinuously. And all of this solar system charge up suggests the sun is actually going to do the solar flash. I'm going to comprehensively go through the 1950s channeling that predicted this, that was vetted by Wilbert B. Smith, the Canadian communications engineer. 100 questions that he asked people who said they were in contact with extraterrestrials. They all answered him the same way, at least the ones that stuck. And different sources were giving him the same information. And they said that we're going to go through this solar system realignment, where all kinds of stuff happens. The planets change their orbital positions. It's a huge, huge, huge discontinuous event. I want you to be prepared for this. I do as much as I can in these videos, and I can go a lot deeper when I'm doing something private. So without belaboring the point, there's going to be a lot more write-ups. There's a lot of other topics I haven't mentioned that we're going to cover. It's going to be probably 30 hours of material. You can watch Elizabeth's material. We have bonus... Oh, by the way, 2 bonus videos where I'm having a very intense conversation with the noted DNA scientist, Dr. Len Ryan. We did it right here on this set. I mean, this little green egg thing wasn't here, but everything else was there. So it looks beautiful, and we had a very intense, wonderful conversation that I think you're really going to enjoy. I'm also going to do a meditation music where I have background music and there's a meditation. That's going to be a bonus that comes with it. And again, if you've done any of our stuff before, it's only $222. So we're trying to keep the price point down. It is already less expensive than other conferences. I'm sorry if they feel like I'm hurting them by not charging more, but we're trying to keep it as cheap, if I can say that. It's less expensive, right? Less expensive as possible. That ends my commercial. Thank you guys for your support. I do want to apologize for my absence. I'm not going to keep doing that, but there were several reasons why it was necessary, including the fact that all of the things that I want to talk about would have prevented me from doing this meditation right now when we really need it. Because that blanket of white healing light we just spread over the earth is really needed right now. And so I would ask you to please not be dependent on me doing a global meditation. Please try to stay in a peaceful, loving, meditative place. Please be supportive and loving to the people around you, your family members, your friends, your coworkers, your associates. This is what really gets you in alignment with the cosmic and galactic mind. If you act lovingly, you are, in essence, becoming the Logos, because the law of one defines the Logos as Jesus, the galactic mind, and love itself. Okay? So it's all three. So when you connect with love, you are connecting with the galactic mind, and you are speeding up your evolution in cosmic terms. I'm happy to help you with that. So please, once again, the final action item is go to ascensionmysteryschool.com. If I get taken down for this, which could very well happen, we will migrate to another platform. And so put your email address in there. It costs nothing. We do not bombard you with ads. There will be a certain number of ads coming out before this upcoming launch, but then you might not hear from me for a month or two, okay? And again, please remember to set the filter so that it goes into your inbox automatically, because otherwise you're never going to see it, okay? So go to ascensionmysteryschool.com now for your email address. Go back on Wednesday. You'll get to see the whole course write-up, and I hope that we will see you there. This is mission-critical support for us. We do need the help. We have taxes to pay, to be honest with you, so please come on in and help us out so we don't go into debt. Everybody needs money, and I know everybody gets mad online if you charge for anything, but that's why we try to keep it as inexpensive as possible for you. So again, I want to thank you for showing up today. Thank you for participating in the meditation. We hardly lost anybody. God bless you. I'm going to leave the chat turned on for a little while here so you continue using it, but we will conclude the live stream now, and Elizabeth, would you like to have the last word? Cut to yourself.
Okay, and then I will try to unmute it. So,
You got it. And drag those sliders up.
yeah, I've been putting it down the whole time. All right. Well,
All right. Don't do anything with the mouse, and let me get you up.
here, I'm not going to touch the mouse. And again, stay positive, stay strong, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other. And we'll see you in a week.
Or less, because I got to do that part 2, so it might be
or
faster.
whenever it is.
Okay, everybody, we love you. Thank you so much. No. Don't do that. Let me control.
Oh, you're going to do it. Right.
I figured out how to do this, and you can't hit that. Don't, please, let me do it. Just don't. Okay. Here we go, everybody. Now we're actually going to hit stop, because if I hit the other stop button, which she was going to do, then we actually lose the whole thing. So here we go. See you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.